Chapter 2462. Its body was tens of thousands of feet long. Its body was covered with golden snake scales. Each of them was as big as a dustpan, as if they were made of gold. The most special thing about it was that there was a golden horn on its head. Dragon horn? Huai was stunned. That's right. The golden horn was a dragon horn. And there was a trace of dragon power in the dragon horn. Break! The golden sea python roared, and its aura rolled out like a flood. Crack! As a result, it actually broke the pressure, raised its giant tail, and smashed toward Huai. Not bad. Huai laughed and stretched out his hand. His 5 fingers were like eagle claws, easily penetrating the golden sea python's scales, and divine power burst out from his fingertips. With a crack, the golden sea python's giant tail shattered on the spot, and flesh and blood splattered everywhere. The golden sea serpent screamed in pain, then turned around and fled. Still want to escape? Huai was speechless. He took a step and landed on the golden sea python's head. With a slight force under his feet, the golden sea python's head also began to shatter. It's only a small realm difference, how can it be so strong? The golden sea python was extremely shocked. A small realm of the imperishable realm is equivalent to a large realm of other boundaries. As a half-step imperishable realm, you don't even know this basic knowledge? Hui's face was full of disdain. Go to hell. The golden sea python roared. Roar! With a loud dragon roar, a 5-clawed golden dragon appeared, baring its fangs and brandishing its claws. Ancestral dragon fighting soul? Huai looked at the 5-clawed golden dragon with a surprised expression. This was the golden sea python's fighting soul. And there was a divine fire pattern between the fighting soul's eyebrows, like a golden fire lotus. A sea python had actually activated the ancestral dragon fighting soul? And it even had a dragon horn? It seemed that this guy had unlimited potential. Huai laughed. Stop struggling and submit to me. I can make you transform into a real 5-clawed golden dragon, and an ancestral dragon. You? The golden sea python's face was full of disdain. You don't believe me? Huai frowned. There can only be one ancestral dragon in this world, and no one can replace it. Do you think I will believe your nonsense? The golden serpent's expression was full of mockery. Ignorant and inexperienced. Huai shook his head. A cold light flashed in his eyes as he said, I'll suppress you first. Clang! With a wave of his hand, the broken sword appeared. Huai grabbed the broken sword and took a step forward, slashing at the golden sea python's abdomen. The collision between the broken sword and the snake's scale immediately caused dazzling sparks to burst out. But there was no suspense. A large part of the scales on the golden sea python's abdomen shattered. The sharpness of the broken sword tore through the flesh and entered the sea of chi of the golden sea python. With a loud cracking sound, the golden sea python's chi sea shattered. That heart-wrenching pain caused the golden sea python to howl miserably. Whoosh! Huai took another step forward and landed in front of the golden sea serpent's head. He smiled and said, Still so arrogant? The golden sea python's face was filled with fear. Especially when it saw the broken sword in Hui's hand, its huge body couldn't help but tremble. It said in shock, Qin Baishan's broken sword, why is it in your hands? Qin Feiyang is the descendant of Qin Badian. As his accomplice, is it strange that the broken sword is in my hands? Huai rolled his eyes and put away the broken sword. He grabbed the golden sea python's dragon horn and dragged it all the way to meet up with Qin Feiyang. After meeting up, when he saw the golden sea python's dragon horn, Qin Feiyang was also quite surprised. Generally speaking, for a beast like the sea python, as long as it grew dragon horns, dragon claws, dragon scales, and other things, it basically had the potential to transform into a divine dragon. Huai smiled and said, This guy belongs to me. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Obviously. Hua Yi wanted the golden sea python as his mount. Whatever. Qin Feiyang smiled indifferently. Hua Yi waved his hand, and a divine barrier appeared, imprisoning the sea python. He said, "Send it to the Black Tortoise world first. When I have time, I will slowly tame it." Qin Feiyang nodded. With a wave of his hand, the golden sea python suddenly disappeared. "How much blood do you need?" Hua Yi asked. "I don't know. The more the better," Qin Feiyang said. So far, the blood he collected was enough to open the first stage 3 times. Adding the blood from before, it was a total of 7 times. But even so, he didn't know if this blood could open the 3rd stage of the slaughter domain. Because the slaughter domain had never reached this level. Hua Yi took a deep breath and said, "All right then, let's continue." Time passed little by little. Almost all the sea beasts in this area had been killed by them. The blood collected was enough to open the first stage 5 times. "I think it should be about time." Hua Yi looked at Qin Feiyang and said. Feng Daji said, "If we want to continue, we can only enter the next area." Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and said decisively, "Retreat." Hua Yi immediately took the 2 of them and flew outside. "You really entered the inner sea." However, at this moment, a loud shout rang out. Qin Feiyang and the other 2 were startled. They looked up and saw a white-clothed woman descending in the sky. "It's her. The ancestral dragon of the White Dragon clan." Feng Daji exclaimed, his face instantly turned pale. "Feng Daji, you are courting death." The white-clothed woman looked coldly at Feng Daji, then raised her head and shouted, "Qin Feiyang is with me, quickly support him." The 3 of them were surprised. Could it be that the other ancestral dragons had also left the Divine Dragon Island and came to the inner sea? "Let's go," Qin Feiyang shouted. Hua Yi picked up the 2 of them again and used a supplementary technique to escape without looking back. Strange. The Sea Beast King was captured by us, and almost all the sea beasts in this area were killed by us. But how did the dragons receive the news? Feng Daji was puzzled. It should be the Sea Beast Kings in other areas that informed the dragons. After all, it's hard not to alarm them with such a big movement. Qin Feiyang said. "You are really bold. If it weren't for Yi Zhong's reminder, we really wouldn't have thought that you would dare to enter the inner sea." The white-clothed woman glanced at Qin Feiyang and the other 2. With a loud clang, a snow-white thin sword appeared. In fact, she also had her concerns. Her concern was the ancient castle. Back then, she and the other ancestral dragons rushed to the Star River to support the revered dragon, and the terrifying power of the ancient castle was still unforgettable. However, if she didn't take action, Qin Feiyang and the other 2 would escape, so she could only bite the bullet. Boom! Immediately, a monstrous divine power erupted like a volcano. A heaven-defying divine artifact. "So it's Yi Zhong, that old bastard." A trace of anger rose in Qin Feiyang's eyes. "Don't worry. Divine Dragon Island is in the inner sea. She doesn't dare to release the seal of the heaven-defying divine artifact. As long as the seal is not released, we will have the power to fight," Hua Yi said. Once the seal of the heaven-defying divine artifact was released, it could only be described as destroying the heavens and earth. If the white-clothed woman were to release the seal here, then the first to bear the brunt of it would be Divine Dragon Island. "That's good news," Qin Feiyang muttered, "but we can't keep fighting." "I know. Before the other ancestral dragons come, quickly open the spacetime gate. Feng Daji, protect him." Finished. Hua Yi took out the broken sword and charged towards the white-clothed woman. Broken sword. The white-clothed woman was shocked. This broken sword was actually in the hands of these people. She looked at Hua Yi and locked her gaze on Qin Feiyang. Killing Qin Feiyang was the most important thing. Shua. With a flash, the white-clothed woman avoided Hui and slashed at Qin Feiyang. Your opponent is me. Hui roared and instantly appeared in front of Qin Feiyang. The broken sword tore through the sky and slashed forward. Let's go. Feng Daji grabbed Qin Feiyang and crazily fled forward. At the same time, Qin Feiyang also took out the space-time gate. Divine power gushed out and poured into it. Seeing that Qin Feiyang's recovery speed was too slow, Feng Daji hurriedly urged his divine power and poured it into the space-time gate. Boom! Clang! In the blink of an eye, Hui and the white-clothed woman clashed. The two heaven-defying divine artifacts clashed, accompanied by a loud sound, and the world was annihilated on the spot. You're just at the initial stage of the undying realm, can you stop this sovereign? The white-clothed woman did not tangle with Hui. She took another step forward and swept past him, continuing to attack Qin Feiyang. The white-clothed woman's cultivation was stronger than Hui's, so her speed was naturally faster than Hui's. However, Hui's reaction was not inferior to the white-clothed woman's. Just as the white-clothed woman swept past him, he picked up the broken sword and turned around to slash at the white-clothed woman's back. You deserve to die. The white-clothed woman was furious. She had no choice but to stop and face the broken sword. The reason for that was because if she did not do anything, the might of the broken sword would be enough to slice her body in half. Clang! The two heaven-defying divine artifacts continued to collide, and a destructive aura rolled out in all directions. Clang! At this moment, the space-time gate opened. Qin Feiyang immediately turned to look at Hui and shouted, "Come here." Hui heard this, grabbed the broken sword and slashed with all his strength. Boom! At this moment, the white-clothed woman was forced back a step, and Hui was also sent flying. However, he borrowed the force of the impact to rush towards the space-time gate. You want to leave? How can it be so easy? The white-clothed woman sneered. She took a mysterious step, and her speed increased several times. In half a blink of an eye, she caught up with Hui. The thin sword in her hand emitted a peerless sharpness as it went straight for Hui's back. Hui could only turn around and face the attack. Clang! The two heaven-defying divine artifacts met again. Hui spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot and muttered, "It seems that I can't leave." The white-clothed woman's speed was much faster than his. Although she couldn't kill him in a short period of time, it was no problem for her to stall him. With that thought in mind, Hui shouted, "Don't worry about me, leave quickly." "How can we not care about you?" Qin Feiyang muttered. "Young master, let's leave quickly. The other ancestral dragons must have already arrived. It's better for him to die than for all of us to die here." Feng Daji urged. "I can't leave my companions behind. Not only Hui, even if it was you now, I wouldn't leave you behind." Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice. The only thing they could do now was to open the slaughter domain. Feng Daji looked at Qin Feiyang, then looked at Hui. He gritted his teeth and resolutely rushed towards Hui. "What are you doing here?" Hui said angrily. Qin Feiyang was also shocked. The white-clothed woman was also somewhat stunned. Why did this person run over? To die? Was he stupid? Chapter 2463. However, Feng Daji turned a deaf ear. He quietly split out a wisp of divine soul and stuffed it into Hui's hands. Then, without looking back, he rushed towards the woman in white and roared, "I'll hold her back, you go." Hui was stunned. He lowered his head to look at the wisp of divine soul in his hand. There was a hint of suspicion in his eyes. But very quickly, he understood. Without hesitation, he turned around and rushed towards the space-time gate. He shouted to Qin Feiyang, "Quickly enter the space-time gate." But, Qin Feiyang looked at Hua Yi and then at Feng Daji. Believe me, quick. Hua Yi urged. Qin Feiyang gritted his teeth, decisively turned around and rushed into the space-time gate. The woman in white looked at Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi, stared at Feng Daji, and said contemptuously, "You want to hold me back with just you?" The thin sword in her hand was like a poisonous snake, emitting a white light as it went straight for Feng Daji's forehead. My strength is definitely not enough. But I can still buy some time for the young master and the others. After Feng Daji finished speaking, a destructive aura rushed out from his body without any warning. This is, Qin Feiyang stood inside the space-time gate and looked at Feng Daji from afar with a dazed expression. Not bad. He's going to self-destruct. At this time, Hua Yi also rushed into the space-time gate and nodded at Qin Feiyang. Then why didn't you stop him? I can open the slaughter domain. He doesn't have to die. Qin Feiyang said. Don't worry. He won't die. Hua Yi shook his head. Qin Feiyang said, how can he not die from self-destruction? Believe me. Hua Yi said. Qin Feiyang looked deeply at Hua Yi and then at Feng Daji. With a slight thought, the space-time gate began to dissipate. Boom! At this moment, Feng Daji self-destructed. That destructive wave of air swept out in all directions like a tide. Damn it, damn it! The white-clothed woman rushed out of the blast. She looked rather disheveled. She looked at the spatial door that had already disappeared. Her face was full of anger. Swish! Several figures descended one after another. Where is he? The few of them scanned the void and looked at the white-robed woman. He escaped. The white-robed woman sighed. One of them asked, because of the castle? If he reveals the castle, do you think he still needs to escape? It's Feng Daji. Feng Daji blew up his body, giving Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi a chance to escape. The woman in white said. What? Feng Daji self-destructed? The few of them were dumbfounded. How laughable. We dragons have nurtured him for 100,000 years and finally made him a half-step undying. And now? You've only just started following Qin Feiyang, yet you're willing to self-destruct for Qin Feiyang. Why is that? The white-clothed woman laughed at herself. This is how humans behave. These lowly creatures are all white-eyed wolves. They don't recognize anyone when they turn hostile. The few of them snorted. What's the point of nurturing them? Might as well disband the Dragon God Palace. The white-clothed woman said. This isn't something we can decide. But this Qin Feiyang, why didn't he use the castle? I remember the Black Dragon's patriarch said that last time at the seaside, Qin Feiyang also didn't use the castle. Could it be that an accident happened at the castle? We can't make wild guesses. Maybe he's deliberately hiding it to make us lower our guard. Let's not talk about it. Quickly return to Divine Dragon Island and report this to Lord Dragon Sovereign. The few of them opened an altar and quickly left. The rule force of the internal sea was indeed useless against them. Cloud Mountain Village. A few years passed. Large trees had grown out of the ruins, full of vitality. Clang! Accompanied by a loud noise, an ancient gate appeared above the village. Following that, two young men walked out. It was Qin Feiyang and Hua Yi. Opening the space-time gate would cause a huge commotion, so Qin Feiyang chose Cloud Mountain Village. Putting away the space-time gate, Qin Feiyang looked at Hua Yi and frowned. You always say that you want me to believe you, but what do you want me to believe? Feng Daji won't die. Hua Yi laughed. What do you mean? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Look at what this is. Hua Yi put away the broken sword and opened his palm. The wisp of soul immediately appeared in front of Qin Feiyang's eyes. This is? Qin Feiyang stared at the soul in surprise. The aura emitted by the soul was exactly the same as Feng Daji's. Hua Yi said, before Feng Daji self-destructed, he split a wisp of soul, so as long as the soul exists, he can be resurrected. So that's how it is. Qin Feiyang was overjoyed. Hua Yi gave the soul to Qin Feiyang. Qin Feiyang immediately brought Hua Yi into the ancient castle and personally handed his divine soul over to Hulian. He warned, "You must protect him well." "I know." Fire Lotus nodded. "I'm getting more and more puzzled." Hua Yi suddenly spoke. "What are you puzzled about?" Qin Feiyang and Fire Lotus were taken aback and turned their heads to look at Hua Yi suspiciously. Although the soul was split in advance, it still takes courage to really self-destruct. "Kid, what kind of charm do you have? Why are all the people and ferocious beasts following you so loyal to you?" Hua Yi looked at Qin Feiyang strangely. "This might be my character." Qin Feiyang thought for a while and said, "I really didn't realize that your character is so good." Hua Yi pursed his lips. Qin Feiyang said, "But you can't deny that I am indeed good to the people around me." "Yes, yes, yes. Good people have good karma. But the key is, are you a good person?" Hua Yi despised. Qin Feiyang was speechless. In fact, Qin Feiyang was also a little surprised. For example, although Big Black Wolf also sacrificed himself to save him in the Dragon God Palace, they had been together for a long time after all. And this Feng Daji, they just met not long ago. Moreover, when he came into contact with the Fate contract, he took the opportunity to control Feng Daji. Logically speaking, Feng Daji should have hated him. Perhaps it's because Feng Daji knows that if you die, the dragons will definitely not let him go, so it's better to fight and help you escape. Fire Lotus pondered for a while and said, "Yes, yes, yes. This is the most reasonable explanation. It has nothing to do with your character." Hua Yi nodded again and again. Qin Feiyang shook his head and smiled. Looking at Feng Daji's soul, he asked, "How long will it take for him to condense a complete soul and reconstruct his body?" Hua Yi said, "For someone in his realm, it will take at least tens of thousands of years." "So long?" Qin Feiyang frowned. "Of course, after all, his cultivation is so strong. However, if his soul is placed in the spirit vein, it will speed up. Because the energy of the spirit vein is very helpful in condensing the soul. Plus the time array of the Black Tortoise realm, it won't take long." Hua Yi said. "That's good." Qin Feiyang breathed a sigh of relief, looked at Fire Lotus and said, "Go to the herb field." "Okay." Fire Lotus nodded and walked out. Hua Yi looked at Fire Lotus's back and looked at Qin Feiyang with dissatisfaction, saying, "I say, you're still ordering her around like a servant? Let me tell you, she's still the Nine Heavens Palace Master." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and walked out of the castle. "I'm asking you a question." Hua Yi chased after him. Qin Feiyang ignored him and flew directly above the Blood Sea. Inside the Blood Sea, there were countless corpses of sea beasts. The smell of blood was pungent. Hua Yi pondered, "This blood should be enough, right? It doesn't matter if it's enough or not, the 4 ancestor dragons must die this time. Otherwise, Feng Daji's sacrifice will be in vain." Qin Feiyang said. Hua Yi looked at Qin Feiyang and looked at the Blood Sea again, saying, "Then, there will be a tough battle ahead. Then let's fight." Qin Feiyang said in a low voice. "All right, prepare more heavenly dust divine pellets, I'll accompany you to cause a ruckus." Hua Yi chuckled and turned to look at the sky above the herb field. Soon, he saw the golden sea python. The golden sea python was imprisoned by a barrier, lying in the sky above the courtyard, its huge eyes filled with despair. Shwa! Hua Yi took a step forward and landed beside the golden sea python. With a wave of his hand, the barrier disappeared. "You're just a despicable person who bullies the weak." The golden sea python roared in anger. "You still have the strength to be arrogant?" Huai was stunned for a moment before nodding. All right, then I'll imprison you for another 10,000 years. 10,000 years. The golden sea python trembled and quickly said, Don't, let's talk. I'm not in the mood. You only have one choice, submit. Otherwise, do you see the blood sea? If you don't submit, I'll throw you in. Huai sneered. The golden sea python looked at the blood sea on Qin Feiyang's side and its pupils shrank. Huai said, I'll ask you one last time, will you submit? I submit. The golden sea python hesitated for a moment and finally chose to lower its head and compromise. If it didn't submit, it would die. There was no choice. That's more like it. Huai smiled. He turned his head to look at Qin Feiyang and said, Qin Feiyang, quickly come over here and help me control it. Qin Feiyang turned to look at Huai, then lowered his head to look at the blood sea before stepping in front of Huai. You still want to control me? The golden sea python was shocked. Nonsense. If I don't control you, do you think I'll let you follow me? Don't resist, or I'll end your life. Huai waved his hand, and the broken sword appeared again in front of the golden sea python's head. Qin Feiyang also evolved the slavery seal and rushed into the golden sea python's head. With the broken sword in front of it, how could the golden sea python dare to resist? He took control of it very smoothly. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Looking at the golden sea python, he asked suspiciously, Why aren't you controlled by the fate contract? Because of the Beast Emperor. The golden sea python said. Beast Emperor? Qin Feiyang was stunned. The Beast Emperor controls the entire internal sea. Its strength is comparable to the ancestral dragon, and the Beast Emperor also has a divine artifact. Although this divine artifact isn't a heaven-defying divine artifact, it has a very heaven-defying ability. It's because of the Beast Emperor's opposition that the revered dragon didn't control us. The golden sea python said. Comparable to the ancestral dragon, doesn't that mean it's immortal? Qin Feiyang was shocked. Yes. The golden sea python nodded. Qin Feiyang and Huai looked at each other, and their hearts couldn't help but become heavy. They thought that other than Yizhong, there wouldn't be any other outsiders among the dragons, but they didn't expect another Beast Emperor to jump out. And like Yizhong, it's not weaker than the ancestral dragons. Chapter 2464. How terrifying was the foundation of the dragons? Other than Yizhong and the Beast Emperor, were there any other supreme experts hiding? Huai asked, You just said that the Beast Emperor has a divine artifact. What kind of divine artifact is it? A supreme artifact. The golden sea python said. I see. Huai nodded. But Qin Feiyang was a little stunned. What level was a supreme artifact? The golden sea python said, A supreme artifact is above a legendary artifact. It is infinitely close to a heaven-defying artifact. I see. Qin Feiyang suddenly realized and asked, Does a supreme artifact have the power of law? The golden sea python said, A supreme artifact definitely doesn't have the power of law. Otherwise, it wouldn't be a supreme artifact, but a heaven-defying artifact. But once a supreme artifact has the power of law, it can immediately transform into a heaven-defying artifact. Huai said. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, Isn't it impossible for a divine artifact to have the power of law? That's right. But it can be bestowed. For example, your ancestor. He now controls the space-time law. As long as he bestows the power of the space-time law to the supreme artifact, then this supreme artifact can transform into a heaven-defying artifact. Huai said. If that's the case, doesn't that mean the Beast Emperor's supreme artifact can evolve into a heaven-defying artifact at any time? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Yes. But bestowing the power of law to a supreme artifact is not a simple matter. Because the person bestowing the power must thoroughly comprehend the power of law. And in the current ancient world, I don't think there is anyone who has completely comprehended the power of law. Hua Yi said. So that's how it is. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization and asked, then what about Long Zun? As the strongest person in the ancient world, the power of law she comprehended should be stronger than my ancestor. Longzhuan also comprehended the power of space-time law. But he didn't know what level she had reached. Hua Yi also shook his head. Although he had fought with Longzhuan these years, her true strength was still a mystery. Do you know? Qin Feiyang looked at the golden sea serpent again. It's hard to even see her normally, so how would I know? In any case, I reckon that even the ancestral dragons might not understand Long Zun's strength. The golden sea python said. This old witch has hidden herself so deeply. Qin Feiyang was surprised. Old witch? The golden sea serpent was stunned. In the current world, there was probably only this person who dared to humiliate Long Zun like this. He then said, as the ruler of the ancient world, how could she let others know about her background? I definitely have to hide something. Qin Feiyang shook his head helplessly and asked, what kind of heaven-defying ability does the Beast Emperor possess? Teleport. This divine artifact can teleport you to any place in the ancient world. The golden sea python said. Hua Yi said in surprise, isn't this the same as the spatial gate? Space-time gate? The golden sea serpent looked at Hua Yi suspiciously. After being imprisoned by Hua Yi, Qin Feiyang sent it to the Black Tortoise realm, so it didn't see the spatial gate with its own eyes before. Qin Feiyang looked at Hua Yi, then looked at the golden sea serpent and said, other than teleporting in the ancient world, can it teleport to other places? For example, outside the ancient world? Outside the ancient world? The golden sea serpent was stunned and asked suspiciously, are you talking about your hometown? My hometown? Qin Feiyang was also stunned for a moment, then nodded and said, including it. The golden sea serpent shook its head and said, that's definitely not possible, it's not in the same world. Qin Feiyang nodded. Hua Yi looked at Qin Feiyang and said, listening to what you said, the spatial gate can directly return to your hometown? But, Qin Feiyang wanted to blurt out, sure. But he suddenly remembered that he had never tried it before. However, Hua Yi's question reminded him. Since the spatial gate could teleport between the two continents, then could it also directly return to the Great Qin from the ancient world? If it was really possible, then wouldn't he be able to return to the Great Qin and the Forgotten Continent at any time to visit his family and friends? Thinking of this, he couldn't help but become excited. He couldn't wait to try it out. However, the spatial gate would only be open tomorrow. Let's talk about it after we've dealt with the dragons. Qin Feiyang muttered, then looked at Hua Yi and said, I'm going back to the cultivation room. After saying that, he turned into a ray of light and entered the ancient castle. Hua Yi also kept his broken sword, looked at the golden sea serpent, and laughed sinisterly. Now, I will properly tame you, sit down with me. How do I sit? The golden sea serpent felt wronged. It wasn't a human, so it was fine to tell it to lie down, but to sit down? Wasn't this making things difficult for it? Besides, it wasn't a wild beast that hadn't developed its intelligence, so was there a need to tame it? Inside the cultivation room, Qin Feiyang refined more than 10 Tianqian divine pills, all of which had a dragon-shaped Dan Qi. Then, he opened the pill scripture. After breaking through to the half-step god realm, he began to open the next page of the pill scripture. He was really looking forward to it. On the next page, there were some pill formulas. After opening it, 3 pill formulas immediately entered his line of sight. The first was called Supreme Nirvana Pill. The second was called Yin and Yang Chaos Pill. The third was called Divine Body Reconstruction Pill. Supreme Nirvana Pill? Yin and Yang Chaos Pill? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Why was this name so similar to Nirvana Pill and Chaos Pill? He carefully checked the pill formulas. So that's how it is. Soon, Qin Feiyang's eyes revealed a trace of understanding. These two pills were actually the evolved versions of the Nirvana Divine Pill and the Chaos Divine Pill. Supreme Nirvana Pill opened the door to the potential of the God realm. Yin and Yang Chaos Pill permanently raised to a small realm of the God realm. Moreover, the medicinal ingredients for Nirvana Pill and Chaos Pill were also the medicinal ingredients needed for Supreme Nirvana Pill and Yin and Yang Chaos Pill. For example, Nirvana Divine Fruit, Mother Earth Chaos Divine Ginseng, 9th Grade Immortal Lotus, Congealing Divine Jade, and so on. But the difference was, these medicinal ingredients were secondary to Supreme Nirvana Pill and Yin and Yang Chaos Pill. The most important medicinal ingredients for Supreme Nirvana Pill and Yin and Yang Chaos Pill were the Supreme Divine Fruit and Yin and Yang Divine Grass. Supreme Divine Fruit? Yin and Yang Divine Grass? Qin Feiyang whispered. These two medicinal ingredients had never been heard of. But looking at the drawing on the pill formulas, it was somewhat familiar. The Supreme Divine Fruit was a golden fruit. And the leaves and tree trunks were also golden. The Yin and Yang Divine Grass also had very obvious characteristics. It had a total of 2 leaves, one black and one white. Where had he seen it before? Wait. When he looted the medicinal field in the past, he saw some medicinal ingredients that he didn't recognize. The Yin and Yang Divine Grass and the Supreme Divine Fruit were among these medicinal ingredients. Thinking of this, Qin Feiyang immediately turned and walked out of the castle, standing above the medicinal field, carefully scanning the medicinal ingredients in the medicinal field. Not long after, a trace of surprise climbed up in his eyes. Somewhere in the medicinal field, there were a few golden divine trees. The thinnest one was as thick as a thigh, and there were more than a dozen golden fruits hanging on the branches. Not long after, on the other side, he saw more than a dozen divine herbs that were half a foot tall. One of the leaves was black. One of the leaves was white. There are indeed all of them. Qin Feiyang was beaming with joy. Looting the medicinal field really allowed him to wait forever. It seemed that he would have to do this more often in the future. He didn't pick them because he didn't need them now. Qin Feiyang returned to the cultivation room and checked the 3rd pill formula. Divine Body Reconstruction Pill? Could this be a pill for reconstruction of the divine body? In the end, he checked and found that it was really a pill for reconstruction of the divine body. The Divine Body Reconstruction Pill was very helpful for reconstruction of the physical body. And the more dragon-shaped core qi there was, the better the effect. A Divine Body Reconstruction Pill with dragon-shaped core qi could shorten the time by 1/10. 10 dragon-shaped core qi would be even more amazing. It could reconstruct the physical body in an instant. I didn't expect there to be such a pill in the world. Qin Feiyang mumbled. Unfortunately, there were no pills to repair the divine soul. Otherwise, Feng Daji would be able to quickly condense a complete divine soul. The spirit congealing pill had this effect. But for a supreme expert like Feng Daji, the spirit congealing pill was no longer effective. Phew. Qin Feiyang let out a long breath, closed the alchemy scripture, and took out a soul stone to start cultivating. Time flew by. The sky brightened, and noon gradually arrived. On the plains, there was a sea of people early in the morning. But no one dared to set foot on the plains. They all gathered outside the plains. Swoosh! Under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, guards in black armor descended in the sky above the plains. They were the guards of the Holy Dragon City's City Lord Mansion. There were hundreds of them in total. The lowest cultivation level was the 9 Heavens realm. The leader was Jiang Dafei. Jiang Dafei was wearing a set of golden armor. With his hands behind his back, he shouted majestically, "Seal off the surroundings immediately. No one is allowed to step into the plains." Yes. A group of guards immediately spread out and landed at the border of the plains. They held long spears in their hands and wore armor, looking majestic. It was fine before. Although there were a lot of people, the atmosphere was still relatively relaxed. But when Jiang Dafei arrived with a group of guards, the plains were filled with a murderous aura. The people on the plains couldn't help but quiet down. Jiang Dafei retracted his gaze, seemingly inadvertently glanced at the sky above the plains, and muttered, "Is the young lord here yet?" Actually, Qin Feiyang had arrived long ago. It was just that he and Hui Yi had turned into a white-haired old man, blending into the crowd. Because if nothing unexpected happened, the princess of the dragons would definitely come this time. Hiding in the castle would be easy to be exposed. Not long after, another 4 figures descended. 2 of them were Yi Zhong and the Dragon God Palace Master. The other 2 were the old man and the young man that everyone had been waiting for a long time. The old man and the young man were still wearing masks. There was a wound on their lower abdomen, and it was obvious that their qi was destroyed. There were also many bone-deep wounds on their bodies. So miserable. That's for sure. Daring to go against the dragons, will there be a good ending? People discussed in low voices. Qin Feiyang listened to the discussion, and there was a faint trace of ridicule in his eyes. If he hadn't seen it with his own eyes in the city lord's mansion, he would definitely be like these people, thinking that the old man and the young man had suffered inhumane torture in the city lord's mansion. It's pretty good at pretending. Unfortunately, we have already seen through everything. Hui Yi laughed secretly. Don't transmit your voice. Be careful of the princess of the dragons. Qin Feiyang's expression changed slightly as he secretly said. Sorry, I forgot. Hui Yi smiled embarrassedly. Chapter 2465. Yi Zhong glanced at the audience, looked at the Dragon God Temple Master, and said blankly, "Take them down." Yes. The Dragon God Temple Master nodded respectfully, looked at the old man and the young woman, and shouted, "Go down." The old man and the young woman glared at the Dragon God Temple Master and landed in the middle of the plain. Kneel down. The Dragon God Temple Master shouted again. Don't go too far. The masked woman in white suddenly raised her head and glared at the Dragon God Temple Master. This voice, in the crowd. Hearing the voice of the woman in white, Qin Feiyang's face immediately showed a trace of surprise. What's wrong? Hui Yi looked at him suspiciously. It must be an illusion. Qin Feiyang ignored Hui Yi and shook his head while muttering. The Dragon God Temple Master's eyes turned cold and shouted, "You still dare to be arrogant in the face of death? If I ask you to kneel, then kneel." The masked old man sighed, "Girl, kneel." Master, the masked woman looked at the old man in disbelief. We have become prisoners. What else can we do? The masked old man sighed and knelt down. There was a trace of unwillingness in the masked woman's eyes, and she finally knelt down. Impossible, in the crowd. Qin Feiyang stared at the old man and the young woman, and his eyes were full of disbelief. Not only the woman's voice, but even the old man's voice was so familiar. What the hell is going on? Hui Yi looked at Qin Feiyang in surprise. Qin Feiyang frowned and whispered, "Didn't you recognize their voices?" Hui Yi was taken aback. He looked up at the old man and the young woman, and his eyes trembled suddenly. He said secretly, "They are, yes. Lin Yi and her master." Qin Feiyang whispered. How is it possible? Hui Yi also had a look of disbelief. Aren't the master and apprentice in the North region? When did they come to Divine Land? But that's not right. The entrance to Divine Land is not only guarded by dragons, but it is also sealed by dragon sovereign with divine power. Apart from those who were under the control of the fate contract, no one could enter. Although Lin Yi's master was strong, he probably didn't have the courage to break into China. After all, the Divine Land was the home of the dragons. Back then, the old man had personally admitted that he was no match for Long Zun's true body. Therefore, the two of them had no reason to enter the Divine Land. Not to mention the blatant looting of the major cities. What was going on? Hua Yi came back to his senses and hurriedly looked at Qin Feiyang. He said in a low voice, "Don't be impulsive. This is definitely a trap. If I believed you, I would have rushed over by now." Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes at him. Finally, noon arrived. Yi Zhong looked at the sun in the sky, then lowered his head to look at the Dragon God Temple Master and said indifferently, "Let's begin." The Dragon God Hall Master nodded. Looking at the people outside the plains, he said loudly, "I'm sure everyone is very curious at this moment. What do these two people who have wreaked havoc in the north for 5 years look like? Who is it?" Everyone nodded. "Now, I will unveil their true faces for you." After the Dragon God Hall Master said, he walked to the old man and the young man, stretched out his hands, grabbed the masks on their faces, and pulled them hard. Immediately, the faces of the old man and the young man were revealed. "It's really them," Hua Yi whispered. "That's right. The old man and the young man were Lin Yi and the sloppy old man. I've never seen them before. Who are they? That woman looks pretty good." People also started to talk about it. Just as the Dragon God Hall Master lifted the masks of the two, Yi Zhong also glanced at the crowd outside the plains, paying attention to the changes in everyone's expression. "According to our investigation, this woman is called Lin Yi, a member of the Dragon Slayer Temple. And this old man is her master. They wreaked havoc in the north under the instructions of the 4 emperors of the Dragon Slayer Temple." The Dragon God Hall Master shouted. "Nonsense." Jiang Dafei snorted secretly. As a member of the Dragon Slayer Temple, how could he not know that this old man and the young man were from the Dragon Slayer Temple? Obviously, they were framing them. What? It was actually ordered by the Dragon Slayer Temple? What do they want to do? Do they want to see the world in chaos? People roared with righteous indignation. It's very simple. The Dragon Slayer Temple wants to snatch the resources of the north. Although it is the major city lord mansions that suffer this time, it will also indirectly affect everyone in the north. Including you. I know that many of you have opinions about us dragons. But ask yourselves, have we, dragons, ever mistreated you? No. The Dragon God Hall is the best proof. How much energy and resources have we, dragons, spent to cultivate you humans? Look at the Dragon Slayer Temple. What have they done for you all these years? They didn't do anything, and now they are snatching the resources of the north from us. It shows how selfish they are. Is such a group of people really worthy of your worship? The Lord of the Dragon God Hall roared angrily. When people heard this, they couldn't help but show a trace of anger on their faces. This Yi Zhong is really something. Qin Feiyang muttered. It was obvious that Yi Zhong must have taught the Lord of the Dragon God Hall to say these words. Yes. After this mess, everyone's impression of the Dragon Slayer Temple will be greatly reduced in the future. Hua Yi nodded. People's hearts are not what they used to be. The Dragon Slayer Temple is a group of selfish people. Not to mention that they don't have the ability to overthrow us dragons, even if they have the ability, when they rule the divine land and even the entire ancient world, I'm afraid they will only bring you disaster. By then, you will know that we, dragons, are so benevolent and kind. The Lord of the Dragon God Hall sighed. My lord, don't say any more. Hurry up and kill them as a warning to the others. Let the people of the Dragon Slayer Temple give up. Someone in the crowd roared angrily. A smile flashed across the Lord of the Dragon God Hall's eyes. He looked up at Yi Zhong and said, Old Man Yi, Qin Feiyang and the Dragon Slayer Temple haven't shown up yet. Could they not be here? In fact, the main purpose of saying so much was to lure Qin Feiyang and the people of the Dragon Slayer Temple out. But now, no one showed up. Don't worry. These people are cunning. We must keep calm. Yi Zhong thought to himself. Okay. The Lord of the Dragon God Hall responded secretly and continued to slander the Dragon Slayer Temple. He had to admit that he was really eloquent. The people gathered outside the plane were incited by him one after another. Angry roars and insults rang out incessantly. Aren't these people too naive? Hui raised his eyebrows. The humans of the divine land are divided into several groups. There are those who support the Dragon Slayer Temple. There are those who follow the dragons. There are also those who don't help either side. But in contrast, those who support the Dragon Slayer Temple are definitely in the minority. As for those who don't help either side, they're basically trying to protect themselves. Now, after being instigated by the Lord of the Dragon God Hall, they will definitely be more inclined to the dragons. Moreover, among these people, there must be many followers of the dragons. They are hiding in the crowd, cooperating with the Lord of the Dragon God Hall from the inside and outside, constantly driving everyone's emotions. So, everyone is not naive. They are being influenced step by step. That's why they start to hate the Dragon Slayer Temple. Qin Feiyang whispered. The scene was very chaotic and noisy, so even if the two didn't transmit their voices, no one heard it. Hui nodded, looked at Lin Yi and the old man, frowned, and said, "We have to find a way to confirm their identities." Qin Feiyang nodded, lowered his head, and pondered. Kill these bastards. Let the Dragon Slayer Temple disappear from the world and return peace to divine land. A particularly harsh voice came into Qin Feiyang's ears. Qin Feiyang turned his head and looked. More than 10 meters away, a middle-aged man with a half-step transcendent god cultivation base was standing in the crowd, constantly yelling. Qin Feiyang was speechless. Did the Dragon Slayer Temple steal your wife or dig up your ancestral grave? Why do you hate the Dragon Slayer Temple so much? Wait. He observed carefully for a while. He found that this person was deliberately instigating everyone. In other words, this person was a follower of the dragons. Follower was just a polite name. To put it bluntly, he was a lackey or pawn of the dragons. Soon. He had a plan in his mind. He turned to look at Hui and smiled, "Follow me." "Where are we going?" Hui glanced at him suspiciously. "I have already thought of a way." Qin Feiyang chuckled and walked toward the middle-aged man. Hui followed behind him in confusion. "Brother." Qin Feiyang walked behind the middle-aged man and patted him on the shoulder. The middle-aged man was slightly taken aback. He turned to look at Qin Feiyang and frowned. "Old man, who is your brother? Don't try to make connections." Old man, Qin Feiyang was stunned. How did he become an old man? But the next moment, he couldn't help but smile bitterly. The middle-aged man didn't seem to be wrong. He looked like an old man now. Qin Feiyang said, "Brother, I'm not here to make connections with you." "Then why are you here?" The middle-aged man was suspicious. Qin Feiyang took out an elixir from his interspatial ring without a trace, held it in his hand, and said with a mysterious smile, "Do you know what I have in my hand?" "What?" The middle-aged man approached curiously. "Don't let others see." Qin Feiyang glanced around vigilantly and slowly opened his palm. A divine-level spirit sea elixir gradually appeared. "This is," the middle-aged man exclaimed. Qin Feiyang quickly covered the middle-aged man's mouth and whispered, "Keep your voice down." "Yes, yes, yes." The middle-aged man rolled his eyes, looked at the crowd around, and then nodded repeatedly. Qin Feiyang let go of the middle-aged man's hand. The middle-aged man's attitude immediately changed. He smiled obsequiously and said, "Senior, I'm really sorry for offending you. Please forgive me." After that, he stared at Qin Feiyang's hand greedily. "It's okay." Qin Feiyang waved his hand generously and said, "I got this elixir by accident in my early years. I've been reluctant to use it." The middle-aged man nodded and said, "I understand. After all, it's a divine elixir. Who would be willing to use it? But, if you're willing to do one thing for me, I can give it to you." Qin Feiyang said with a smile. His words were full of irresistible temptation. Chapter 2466. Hearing this, the middle-aged man couldn't help but get excited. What's the matter? Just tell me. It's very simple. You change your appearance a little and go to the plains for a stroll. Qin Feiyang said. Is it really that simple? The middle-aged man was stunned. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Old senior, don't fool me. The middle-aged man frowned. Don't worry. As long as you agree, this old man will give you this elixir now. And after that, this old man will give you 2 more. Qin Feiyang smiled. You have more? The middle-aged man was surprised. Yes. Qin Feiyang nodded. Okay. I promise you. The middle-aged man was overjoyed and quickly nodded. Wait. But suddenly. He frowned again and looked at Qin Feiyang. Old senior, you're harming me. Harming you? What do you mean? Why would this old man harm you? Qin Feiyang was puzzled. Don't you see the guards guarding the border? If I break into the plains, I'll definitely die. The middle-aged man said. I didn't say that you have to enter the plains. You can just wander outside the border. Qin Feiyang said. The middle-aged man was stunned for a moment before he asked in surprise, Really? Of course. Qin Feiyang nodded. The middle-aged man smiled. Okay, I'll change my appearance now. He could get 3 elixirs just by wandering outside. It was really a pie in the sky. Wait a minute. You have to change your appearance to the one I want. Qin Feiyang said. The middle-aged man asked suspiciously, What do you want me to change my appearance to? Let's go to the back of the crowd. Qin Feiyang smiled. Okay. The middle-aged man nodded. The 3 of them walked through the crowd and came to the back of the crowd. They walked behind a big tree. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and condensed a figure. This figure looked exactly like him. Who is this? The middle-aged man looked at the figure curiously. A friend of mine. Qin Feiyang smiled and handed the divine pill to the middle-aged man. The middle-aged man happily took the pill and said, I like people as straightforward as old senior. Qin Feiyang laughed hoarsely and said, This old man also likes helpful young people like you. Helping others is the foundation of happiness. The middle-aged man laughed and put away the divine pellet. He threw the illusion form pellet into his mouth and quickly turned into Qin Feiyang's appearance. Then go. This old man will wait for you here. If anyone asks, just say that your name is Qin Feiyang. Even dragons have to bow to you when they hear your name. Qin Feiyang smiled. Qin Feiyang? The middle-aged man was stunned and asked curiously, Who is this Qin Feiyang? You'll know soon enough. Qin Feiyang said. All right. The middle-aged man nodded and turned to walk towards the crowd. Hua Yi laughed, This move is not bad. Letting someone replace him and act as a lure, he was truly a genius to be able to think of such a brilliant plan. I wonder if it's effective. Let's change our appearance again and follow him to take a look. Qin Feiyang said. All right. Hua Yi nodded. The 2 of them changed their appearances slightly and then entered the crowd, following not far behind the middle-aged man. I didn't expect to get a divine pill by coming here to join in the fun. Today is really a good day. The middle-aged man was overjoyed and continued to approach the border of the plains. Yi Zhong, who was standing in the air above the plains, suddenly had a trace of surprise on his face when he swept his gaze across the crowd. Following closely. His target was the middle-aged man. It's really him. Yi Zhong muttered, and quietly sent a sound transmission, Qin Feiyang is here. The Dragon God Palace Lord was shocked and hurriedly asked, Where is he? Inside the crowd. Yi Zhong secretly said. The Dragon God Palace Lord swept his gaze across the sea of people, but there were too many people and he couldn't see the middle-aged man. And now, He didn't dare to fly up to the sky to take a look, fearing that he would alert the enemy. He sent a sound transmission, then quickly informed the 4 ancestral dragon lords to prepare to take action. Yi Zhong responded. The dragon god palace lord was about to speak. Wait a moment. Yi Zhong suddenly shouted. What's wrong? The dragon god palace lord was suspicious. Yi Zhong secretly said, something strange. What strange? The dragon god palace lord was bewildered. He actually didn't hide it at all and brazenly walked towards the plains. Yi Zhong sent a sound transmission. The dragon god palace lord said, isn't this his character? Yi Zhong secretly said, don't worry, this old man will observe first. At this moment, Yi Zhong only had eyes for the middle-aged man, but he didn't deliberately observe him. Finally, the middle-aged man walked out of the crowd and wandered in front of the crowd. Sure enough, it's him. The dragon god palace lord also finally saw him, and the murderous intent in his eyes suddenly burst out. Lin Yi and the old man, who were kneeling on the plains, also looked at the middle-aged man. But there was no joy in their eyes. Instead, a cold light flashed in their eyes. She is indeed not Lin Yi. Qin Feiyang had been observing Lin Yi in the old man, so he clearly caught the cold light. In that case, this trap set by the dragons is really aimed at you. But how did they think of using Lin Yi and the old man as bait? Hua Yi was a little puzzled. Senior dragon, princess dragons, you have seen Yi and the others. It's normal to use them as bait. What I'm more curious about is, who are these two people? Qin Feiyang looked at the old man and the young man. Hua Yi also looked at the old man and the young man suspiciously and asked, do you want to go to the Black Tortoise world to activate the slaughter zone first? No need. In the past, because the Black Tortoise world didn't have a time array, I needed you to help me stall for time. But it's different now. The Black Tortoise world is also 100 years in a day. When the battle starts, I can go and activate the slaughter zone in time. Qin Feiyang said. That's right. Hua Yi nodded. Something's wrong. At the same time, Yi Zhong looked at the middle-aged man with his brows tightly knitted together. No matter how crazy or bold he is, it's impossible to swagger like this. Die. All of a sudden, the dragon god temple master yelled violently and rushed towards the middle-aged man like a divine rainbow. The middle-aged man was shocked. He hurriedly looked at the dragon god temple master and roared, I am Qin Feiyang. Boom. Just as the middle-aged man's voice fell, 4 terrifying auras erupted like volcanoes. Immediately after, the 4 ancestral dragons rushed out from the ground. As soon as they saw the middle-aged man, they immediately took out their heaven-defying divine artifacts and rushed towards him. What's going on? There's actually an ambush. They seem to be ancestral dragons. That's right, they are the ancestral dragons of the dragons. Who is this Qin Feiyang, to actually need the 4 ancestral dragons to ambush him in advance? The people outside the plain were in an uproar and quickly retreated. I'm really Qin Feiyang, what are you doing? The middle-aged man roared. Didn't the old man say that as long as he said this name, the dragons would bow to him? But now, why was it different from what he said? The dragon god temple master took the lead and rushed in front of the middle-aged man. Divine power rolled out as he slammed his palm. The middle-aged man screamed as his body was torn apart on the spot. I'm going in. As soon as the middle-aged man died, Qin Feiyang retracted his gaze and said something to Hua Yi before disappearing without a trace. The show is about to begin. Hua Yi laughed secretly. N? At the same time, the 4 ancestral dragons stopped in the void and looked at the broken limbs flying everywhere with a stunned expression. He died just like that? That was too easy. The dragon god temple master was also stunned. He couldn't believe that he actually killed Qin Feiyang. However, Yi Zhong immediately swept his gaze to the crowd outside the plain. By now, he was already sure that the one who died was not Qin Feiyang. Since it was not Qin Feiyang, then the real Qin Feiyang must be in the crowd. But where was he hiding? Swish! The 4 ancestral dragons came back to their senses and landed beside the dragon god temple master with a look of disbelief. Yi Zhong looked down at the 5 of them and sighed, "He's not Qin Feiyang, you've all been fooled." "He's not?" The dragon god temple master looked up at Yi Zhong, his face full of surprise. "Yes. He's definitely not. The real Qin Feiyang won't be killed so easily." The 4 ancestral dragons looked at each other, then rose into the sky and scanned the surroundings. "How can it not be? He's exactly the same as Qin Feiyang," the dragon god temple master murmured. Boom! At this moment, Yi Zhong and the 4 ancestral dragons released their divine senses at the same time, enveloping everyone outside the plane in an instant. At the same time, Lin Yi, who was kneeling on the ground, also looked up at the void around her. Her eyes emitted a milky white light. "It's her." Seeing this, Hui Yi's pupils suddenly shrank. It was difficult for him to forget this milky white light. Princess dragons. Although both Princess Dragons and Long Zun had this ability, Long Zun would never lower himself to do this kind of thing. So, this person who impersonated Lin Yi was definitely Princess Dragons. There was no need to think about the old man next to her. He must be one of the dragons. "I didn't find the ancient castle." Yi Zhong shook his head and looked down at Princess Dragons. The dragon princess also shook her head and transmitted her voice, "I didn't see the ancient castle in the void. He must be mixed in with the crowd, but there are too many people, blocking my line of sight. Hurry up and kill everyone." The 4 ancestral dragons immediately waved their hands. Divine power surged out and condensed into a huge barrier, covering all directions. Yi Zhong was shocked and hurriedly said, "Your Highness, you can't do this. Everyone else is innocent. It's just a group of ants. Their deaths are not to be regretted." Princess Dragons glanced at the chaotic sea of people. Her eyes were full of coldness. She shouted to the 4 ancestral dragons, "Attack!" A burly man immediately raised the divine bow in his hand, and a destructive aura immediately rushed out in an overwhelming manner. This person was the ancestral dragon of the Fire Dragon clan. The divine bow in his hand was a heaven-defying divine artifact, Sunset Divine Bow. What does he want to do? Is he going to kill all of us? Run! Everyone immediately fled in horror. But being imprisoned by the barrier, where could they escape to? Their hearts were shrouded in despair. Hui Yi hid in the crowd, looking at the panicked people around him. His eyes were full of gloating. "You still believe in dragons now? Now you want to follow the dragons to crusade against the Dragon Slayer Palace? A bunch of ignorant fools. After all, they have lived in divine land for most of their lives. They don't even know what the dragons are like. They just blindly followed the crowd." Chapter 2467. Die! The burly man roared, his eyes filled with ferocity. Although Yi Zhong couldn't bear it, the dragon's princess, the 4 ancestral dragons, and the dragon god palace master were all indifferent. Clang! As the burly man finished speaking, the sunset bow let out an earth-shattering sound. Following that, a flaming arrow condensed from divine power shot toward the people outside the plane like lightning. "Don't kill us. Why are you so cruel? What did we do wrong? Dragons, you're worse than animals." When faced with death, people often forget about fear. Everyone howled in grief. Ants. The burly man's eyes were full of contempt. He naturally wouldn't care about the howling of ants because he didn't care. Clang! Just as everyone was in despair, accompanied by a sword chime that shook the heavens and earth, a broken sword appeared in the sky. The broken sword, as if splitting the heavens and earth, slashed at the flaming arrow. Sparks flew everywhere, and the flaming arrow was immediately shattered. The dragon's princess and the others immediately looked at the broken sword, and their faces suddenly changed. Qin Badian. Qin Badian actually came in person. Whoosh! A white-haired old man soared into the sky from the crowd and grabbed the broken sword. Qin Badian. The 4 ancestral dragons stared at the old man. He's one of the 4 emperors of the Dragon Slayer Palace, the man called the Qin Emperor. He saved us. The crowd below also looked at the old man in a daze. The old man looked up at the sky and laughed. He looked at the 4 ancestral dragons and said, "Don't misunderstand. What kind of person is the Qin Emperor? How would I dare to have the same name as him? Since you're already here, why bother hiding?" The burly man snorted. "You're not only blind, but also stupid. Why would the Qin Emperor hide like this? But we have one thing in common. We're all enemies of you dragons." The old man laughed. "You're really not Qin Badian?" The burly man raised his eyebrows and shouted, "Then who are you? Could it be Qin Feiyang?" Qin Baishan's divine weapon can only be in the hands of Qin Feiyang. The other 3 ancestral dragons said. The old man laughed again, took out a face-restoring pill, and threw it into his mouth. Immediately after, under the gazes of tens of thousands of people, his true appearance was restored. It was a young man in his 20s. His fiery red hair fluttered behind him like waves of fire. "It's you, Huai." The 4 ancestral dragons shouted in unison. "Are you surprised? Are you surprised?" Huai laughed. The light in the eyes of Princess Dragons disguised as Lin Yi had already dissipated. She shouted, "Huai, save us." Huai was stunned. "Still acting? Sure. Then I'll play along with you. Don't worry, I'm here to save you," Huai said. "Where's Brother Feiyang?" Princess Dragons asked. "He had more important things to do, so he didn't come." Huai shook his head. "He didn't come?" Princess Dragons was taken aback. Yi Zhong, the 4 ancestral dragons, the dragon god temple master, and the old man next to Princess Dragons were also stunned. They carefully set up this trap, but he didn't come? Then, didn't they work in vain for the past 5 years? Huai looked at Yi Zhong and the others and said, "If you know what's good for you, let them go immediately, otherwise, I will kill all of you." The eyes of the 4 ancestral dragons flickered. Especially the burly man. When they were in the North region, they were often teased by Huai. The dragon god temple master transmitted his voice, "Your Royal Highness, what should we do now? We can catch him first. Because he has a close relationship with Qin Feiyang. As long as we catch him, we don't have to worry about not being able to find Qin Feiyang. Take him down immediately." Princess Dragons secretly yelled at the 4 ancestral dragons. Boom! The 4 ancestral dragons' aura erupted. "You really want to make a move? I was just joking just now. Don't take it seriously." Hui's face changed, and he immediately turned and fled. The 4 ancestral dragons were taken aback. Wasn't he still so arrogant just now? Why did he suddenly turn pale? The burly man sneered and said, "It seems that he was just pretending to be calm before. Let's end this quickly." The black-robed old man, the blonde young man, and the silver-haired young man also nodded. Clang! But just as the 4 ancestral dragons were about to kill Huai, a loud sound that tore the sky and earth apart suddenly exploded in the void above. Following that, a young man in blood-red clothes covered in blood appeared out of thin air. In his hand, he was holding a 3 feet long blood sword. He was like a god of death descending. But the power of the blood sword didn't seem to be very strong. In fact, it wasn't that it wasn't strong, but Qin Feiyang deliberately suppressed the power of the blood sword to avoid harming the innocent creatures in the north. Not good. Yi Zhong's face changed, and he immediately rushed toward Princess Dragons. Although Hui had been acting all along, and it was very realistic, his intuition told him that this matter wasn't so simple. So he had been secretly paying attention. Sure enough, Qin Feiyang was hiding in the dark. Qin Feiyang. At the same time, the 4 ancestral dragons' faces also changed. All of you must die. Qin Feiyang spoke word by word, his killing intent soaring to the heavens, and he had already restored his true appearance. As his voice fell, the blood-red sword was like a graceful swan as it rushed toward the 4 ancestral dragons. He didn't care about Princess Dragons, because there was still Hui. Hui didn't escape either. With a sword, he shattered the barrier laid down by the 4 ancestral dragons and shouted, "A bunch of idiots, hurry up and run." Those who were imprisoned didn't dare to hesitate and immediately turned around to flee for their lives. Following that, Hui looked at Princess Dragons, a hint of ridicule flashed in his eyes, and then he roared, "I'll save you now." Swoosh. As soon as he finished speaking, he gripped the broken sword and rushed towards the dragon princess and her companion. And Jiang Dafei naturally wouldn't be stupid enough to help the dragons, so he fled with a group of guards. Looking at the 4 ancestral dragons again, Qin Feiyang's appearance was completely out of their expectations. Especially when they saw the blood sword rushing toward them, their scalps couldn't help but tingle. Because back then, the Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon and Black Dragon Ancestral Dragon had all suffered a great loss under the blood sword. Especially the Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon. If it wasn't for Long Zun's clone, he would have already fallen in the Sky Dragon Sea. Quick! The Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon roared. Boom! The 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts suddenly released a terrifying destructive force. They had unlocked the seal. But not all of it. Because there wasn't enough time, they could only hurriedly unlock a little of the seal. Don't panic. I know the power of the blood sword. Although only a little of the seal has been unlocked, the 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts can completely crush it. Kill! The Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon roared. Clang! The 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts carried a destructive aura as they charged toward the blood sword. Unlocking a little of the seal is enough? Qin Feiyang smiled coldly. He had already absorbed all the blood in the Devil's Land, not leaving a single drop behind. It didn't disappoint him. The slaughter domain had barely entered the 3rd stage. One has to know that the power of the 3rd stage of the slaughter domain was already comparable to a fully unlocked divine artifact. Just unlocking a little of the seal was delusional enough to shake the blood sword at this moment? That was simply a fool's dream. In the blink of an eye. Almost in an instant. The blood sword tore through the sky and slashed toward the 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts. Although the power was suppressed, the edge was unstoppable. Clang! Accompanied by a loud sound, the sunset god Bao broke on the spot. What? The Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon's expression suddenly changed. Clang! With another loud sound, the blonde youth's golden battle sword also broke in an instant. Impossible. The blonde youth's face was also filled with disbelief. Clang! The silver-haired youth and the black-robed elder's heaven-defying divine artifacts were also broken by the blood sword. Why is it like this? The two were also shocked to the extreme. It seems to be stronger than before. The dragon's princess's face was also filled with shock. Artifact spirit. Quickly take the opportunity to unlock all the seals. The burly man quivered and immediately roared. What? Unlock all the seals? Yi Zhong's expression changed as he said, "You have to think clearly. If the seals are completely unlocked, more than half of the north, including the Dragon God Palace, will be destroyed in an instant. If the 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts were completely unlocked, it could only be described as the end of the world. Even the Divine Dragon Island would be affected. Because the location of the Dragon God Mountain was already in the center of the Divine Land. As long as we can kill him, not to mention more than half of the north and a mere dragon god palace, even if we destroy the entire north, it doesn't matter. As for the divine dragon island, there is the dragon sovereign and the other ancestral dragons overseeing it. There is no need to worry at all. This sovereign orders you to unlock the seals immediately. The burly man looked at the 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts and shouted sternly. Do you think I will give you a chance? In order to kill you, I have made too many preparations, and even had someone self-destruct for me. Today, you must die. Qin Feiyang's blood-red hair fluttered, and the blood sword was like a graceful swan as it attacked the 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts. If the seals were really unlocked, facing the 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts, the blood sword might not be a match. Because the current lethality of the blood sword was only comparable to a fully awakened heaven-defying divine artifact, 1 against 4, it would definitely be at a disadvantage. Most importantly, he did not want to implicate innocent people. Clang! In a flash, the 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts that were originally cut in half were cut into more than a dozen pieces. After suffering such heavy injuries, they were no longer able to exert their full strength. Damn it, damn it! The 4 ancestral dragons roared. It's you who deserve to die. Qin Feiyang coldly shouted, and the blood sword was like lightning as it attacked the 4 ancestral dragons. It was also at this moment. Yi Zhong rushed to the side of the dragons and princess, and did not care about the 4 ancestral dragons and the dragon god palace master. He took the 2 dragons and prepared to escape. Old bastard, put them down. Hui Yi also rushed over at this moment. The dragon god palace master wanted to stop him, but when he saw the broken sword in Hui Yi's hand, he fled for his life. Princess Dragons looked at Hui Yi and said, Old Yi, I have a plan. Go ahead. Yi Zhong secretly said. Princess Dragon secretly muttered a few words. When Yi Zhong heard this, he quickly said, No, it's too risky. Believe me, it's absolutely possible. Princess Dragon said. All right. Yi Zhong helplessly responded and immediately attacked Hui Yi. Courting death. Hui Yi smiled coldly and slashed out with his sword. Yi Zhong was startled and quickly dodged. Hui Yi did not take advantage of the victory to pursue and landed in front of Princess Dragons and said with a smile, It's fine, don't worry. Thank you. Princess Dragons said gratefully. We're all family, why are you thanking me? Hui Yi smiled speechlessly. Murderous intent flashed in the eyes of the dragon princess. A dagger gleaming with cold light appeared in her hand that was hidden in her sleeve. Chapter 2468. That's right. Her plan was to take advantage of Hui Yi's unpreparedness and cripple his cultivation. Then, she would use Hui Yi to threaten Qin Feiyang to surrender. However, she thought it was flawless, but unfortunately, Hui Yi had already seen through it. Clang! Without waiting for her to make a move, the broken sword was placed on her neck. Princess Dragon's body stiffened immediately. The person who pretended to be Lin Yi's master next to her, as well as Yi Zhong in the distance, were also shocked. Are you surprised? Are you surprised? Hui Yi smiled playfully. What are you doing? Princess Dragon said in a panic. Still acting? In order to lure us out, you first looted the city lord mansion of the major cities, and now you kneel down in public. It's really unfair for you, Your Highness. Hui Yi looked at Princess Dragons with a sneer. What? Princess Dragon's body trembled, and he had already seen through her identity. Shoo! Hui Yi made a silent gesture and smiled, Don't talk, watch the show first. After saying that, he looked up at Qin Feiyang and the 4 ancestral dragons. At this moment, the blood-colored long sword had already arrived in front of the 4 ancestral dragons. They, who had lost their divine artifact, couldn't block the blood-colored long sword no matter what means they used. The sky-tearing and earth-shattering aura surged forward, leaving ghastly wounds on their bodies, causing them to bleed profusely. At this moment, they couldn't help but feel desperate. Die! Qin Feiyang roared, staring at the four of them. Boom! Seeing that the four of them were about to die under the blood sword, a monstrous power suddenly rushed out from Princess Dragon's body. Long Zun's clone. The four ancestral dragons suddenly saw hope. However, Qin Feiyang and Huai weren't surprised at all. Because they had long known that Long Zun's clone was hidden in Princess Dragon's body. They had already expected that it would definitely appear. Just when Long Zun's clone appeared, a strong murderous intent surged in Hui's eyes. Clang! The broken sword swept across. Ah! With a scream, the head of the princess of the dragons shattered on the spot. After her head was crushed, the lower half of her body transformed into a dragon. However, she was different from other divine dragons. The dragon scales on her body were milky white and sparkled like gems. Huai waved his broken sword again, and the dragon princess's divine dragon body also shattered. Your Highness. Yi Zhong, the hall master of the dragon god palace, and even the person who pretended to be the sloppy old man were all gritting their teeth. The moment Long Zun's clone came out, he saw his daughter die right in front of him. Instantly, he was enraged. Don't blame me. She asked for it. Huai chuckled and retreated without hesitation. You want to die. Even if a god descends to the mortal world, he won't be able to save you. The dragon sovereign avatar suddenly looked at Huai, a bone-piercing chill emanating from his body. Then, he sent a palm strike towards Huai. The person who had pretended to be the sloppy old man no longer concealed himself as he madly charged towards Huai. Yi Zhong, the dragon god palace master, also charged towards Huai. Fuck. The four ancestral dragons are about to lose their lives, and you're still chasing after me? Are you guys crazy? Seeing this, Huai turned around and fled in fear. He originally thought that these people would rush to save the four ancestral dragons, but he didn't expect them to chase after him. If the broken sword wasn't sealed, he could still fight. But now, he could only run for his life. Lord Long Zun, the four ancestral dragons also thought that Long Zun's clone would save them, but the result was far beyond their expectations. Clang! Accompanied by a cry of despair, the blood-colored sword fell, and the sharp edge instantly drowned them. Ah! For screams suddenly resounded through the sky. They had all changed back to their true forms. A black dragon, a fire dragon, a golden dragon, and a silver dragon had a cluster of divine fire patterns between their eyebrows. This was the symbol of an ancestral dragon. But even if they changed back to their divine dragon bodies, it was useless. Their huge bodies were cut into several pieces by the blood sword, and their divine souls were also torn into pieces by the sword qi. What? Yi Zhong turned his head to look, and his face immediately changed. The four ancestral dragons were killed just like that? It seemed that he had greatly underestimated this kid's strength. Slaughter domain, what kind of divine technique was this? How could it have such heaven-defying lethality? Seeing this scene, Long Zun's clone was undoubtedly even more furious, and he slapped at Huai. Huai raised the broken sword horizontally. Long Zun's clone slapped the broken sword, and Huai spat out a mouthful of blood on the spot. The arm that grabbed the broken sword was torn open and shattered on the spot. The broken sword also immediately flew out of his hand. He hurriedly stretched out his other hand and grabbed the broken sword. This was given to him by Qin Badian, so he couldn't lose it. After grabbing the broken sword, Huai smashed into the ground below like a meteorite. Old witch, you're really scary. Hui's heart trembled. Although the broken sword was sealed, it was still a heaven-defying divine artifact, but it couldn't block the power of Long Zun's clone's palm. Kill him. Long Zun's clone no longer cared about Huai, and coldly shouted at Yi Zhong and the other two, and rushed towards the four heaven-defying divine artifact fragments. Yi Zhong, the dragon god palace master, and the sloppy old man who pretended to be the sloppy old man also immediately rushed towards Huai. Hold on. Qin Feiyang said to Hui Yi, and also rushed towards the 4 heaven-defying divine artifact fragments. Even if a heaven-defying divine artifact was left with the last fragment, it could slowly be repaired with the passage of time. So, these 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts must be snatched. However, although he was closer, Long Zun's clone speed was faster than him. Almost at the same time, they rushed in front of the 4 heaven-defying divine artifact fragments. You still want the divine artifact, are you dreaming? Long Zun's clone said coldly, and slapped at Qin Feiyang with all his strength. I think you still haven't figured out one thing. The current slaughter domain and the previous slaughter domain are no longer on the same level. Not to mention a mere clone, even if your original body came, I would still kill you. Qin Feiyang smiled and slashed out with his sword. How is this possible? Along with a cry of surprise, Long Zun's clone was annihilated on the spot. What? Lord Long Zun's clone was actually killed by the blood sword? Yi Zhong and the other two looked at this scene in horror. Wasn't this child already invincible? Go! Yi Zhong shouted without hesitation, and swept up the 2 people from the Dragon God Palace, and turned to escape. Stay! Hui Yi laughed. He was originally quite worried, but he didn't expect the blood sword to be so strong now. The broken sword in his hand immediately flew out, turning into a graceful, and slashed towards the 3 people like lightning. At the same time, Qin Feiyang waved his hand, sending the 4 heaven-defying divine artifact fragments into the ancient castle, and also controlled the blood sword to attack the 3 people. Following 2 miserable screams, the Dragon God Palace Master and the sloppy old man's body were torn into pieces on the spot. Too terrifying. Yi Zhong's entire body was also dripping with blood. The broken sword was still fine, but he really couldn't block the sharp edge of the blood-red sword. In the nick of time, he slapped the broken sword with a backhand. His arm was instantly shattered. But the broken sword was also knocked away. Following closely, he didn't dare to stay any longer. He immediately activated an auxiliary divine art and flew away like lightning. Chase! Hui Yi flew over, grabbed the broken sword, and chased after Yi Zhong. Don't chase! Qin Feiyang hurriedly reached out to stop him, and shouted, immediately open the altar, let's go. Go? Hui Yi frowned. Qin Feiyang said in a deep voice, if we don't leave now, Long Zun and the other ancestral dragons will come. When Hui Yi heard this, his expression changed slightly, and he immediately opened an altar. Qin Feiyang also waved his hand and stored the bodies of the 4 ancestral dragons and the Dragon God Palace Master into the Black Tortoise realm, and then rushed towards the altar. Boom! It was also at this moment. Several terrifying auras descended. Hui Yi was already standing on the altar. When he looked up, his expression changed drastically. 7 figures appeared in the sky at the same time. The one in the lead was Long Zun. The other 6 were also ancestral dragons. Quick! Hui Yi shouted. It's too late to come now. Qin Feiyang sneered, rushed onto the altar, raised the blood-red sword, and slashed out. A wave of blood-red sword chi instantly rushed towards the 7 people in an earth-shattering manner. Long Zun and the other 6 attacked together. By the time they managed to defeat the sword chi with great difficulty, Qin Feiyang and Long Zun had already disappeared without a trace. It's just a sword chi, but it actually requires the 7 of us to work together, and we can't defeat it quickly. It's indeed terrifying. One of them said in a deep voice. Another person looked at Long Zun and said, Lord, the Sunset Divine Bao, these 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts, can't fall into his hands. Long Zun clenched her fists. She originally thought that Qin Feiyang entered the inland sea to sneak into Divine Dragon Island. Only now did she know that it was to collect blood to open the slaughter domain in preparation for this moment. The power of the slaughter domain was also much stronger than the previous 2 times. Could it be that as long as there was blood in this slaughter domain, it could become stronger endlessly? How could there be such a perverted divine art in this world? Lord Longzun. The 6 ancestral dragons looked at Longzun suspiciously. Be quiet. Longzun shouted. Now she was about to go crazy. His cultivation was clearly so weak, but he had repeatedly caused her dragons to suffer great losses. The slaughter domain needs blood. And Qin Feiyang won't kill humans, only sea beasts and beasts. Now, you will go and guard the North Sea, East Sea, West Sea, South Sea, and the Inland Sea. Because only these few places have enough sea beasts and beasts. As long as you see him appear, directly unlock the seal of the heaven-defying divine artifact and kill him at all costs. Longzun shouted. Yes. The 6 of them respectfully responded, opened the altar, and left. Qin Feiyang. Qin Badian. You two damn things, don't rush to be proud. The real battle hasn't begun yet. Wait until I, the dragons, bring out my true strength. Then you will know that the slaughter domain and the heaven-defying divine artifact are all trash that can't withstand a single blow. Longzun murmured, turned around, and disappeared. In the sky above a certain mountain range, 2 figures appeared out of thin air. It was Qin Feiyang and Huai. This time, it's really satisfying. Huai laughed again and again. Qin Feiyang also laughed. Not only did he successfully kill the 4 ancestral dragons, princess dragons, and the dragon god palace master, but he also snatched 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts. Compared to what he had done in the past, it was simply not on the same level. Qin Feiyang, since your slaughter domain is so strong, why don't you directly kill Longzun? Huai was curious. Chapter 2469. The current slaughter is indeed very strong. But it's only comparable to a fully awakened heaven-defying artifact. The dragons still have so many heaven-defying artifacts. If the seals on them are unlocked, then we can only wait for death. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said. So that's how it is. Huai suddenly realized and frowned, with so much blood, we can only reach the 3rd stage. How much blood do we need to reach the 4th stage? We can only barely reach the 3rd stage. As for the 4th stage, it's actually just my guess. I don't know if we can reach that level. Qin Feiyang said. Even if we can't reach the 4th stage, it's still very heaven-defying. Huai laughed. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, but we have to keep a low profile in the future. Keeping a low profile isn't my style. Huai said. Qin Feiyang rolled his eyes and said, the stored blood has been exhausted. In a short time, we can't find enough blood to open the 3rd stage. Let's go to the Inland Sea again. That place is a treasure trove for you. Huai smiled sinisterly. Do you think the dragons will let me smoothly collect blood in the future? Qin Feiyang was speechless. Huai was surprised. You mean, the dragons will let people guard the major sea areas? Definitely. And if there are no accidents, the ones guarding the major sea areas will definitely be the ancestral dragon. When they see me running to collect blood, I'm afraid they will directly unseal the heaven-defying artifact without saying a word. Qin Feiyang said. That makes sense. After all, your slaughter is too strong. If we don't find a way to stop you from collecting blood, I'm afraid the dragons will be destroyed in your hands sooner or later. Huai nodded. That's why we have to keep a low profile in the future. Qin Feiyang said. Then, why don't we just kill our way to the Dragon God Palace and loot the Dragon God Palace's medicinal herbs, crystal veins, and spirit veins? Huai suggested. Big brother, are you trying to kill me? The plan has failed, and the Dragon Princess is dead. The Dragon Sovereign will definitely find trouble with Yizhong. If we go to the Dragon God's palace now, won't that be suicide? The herbs, crystal veins, and spirit veins of the Dragon God's palace cannot be let go of, but this matter must be considered at length. Qin Feiyang said. All right. Hua Yi nodded. In any case, he just had to listen to this fellow. Let's go. Let's go to the castle and see our spoils of war. Qin Feiyang smiled and led Hua Yi into the castle's hall. At this moment, Fire Lotus, Big Black Wolf, Golden Divine Ray, and Black Panther were all there, but the white-eyed wolf was nowhere to be seen. Right now, it was completely immersed in seclusion, and no one could make it move. Seeing Qin Feiyang appear, the big black wolf immediately said, "Big brother, I'm not dreaming, right? These are all heaven-defying divine artifacts." The fragments of the 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts were all floating in the air in front of them, their light dim. Hua Yi directly kicked him. The big black wolf howled and crashed into the stairs leading to the 2nd floor. "Why did you kick me?" The big black wolf got up and said angrily. "Does it hurt?" Hua Yi asked. "Nonsense. Let me try kicking you." The big black wolf said angrily. "Then come at me." Hua Yi looked at it teasingly. The big black wolf shrunk its neck. It really didn't have the guts. Since it hurts, then it's not a dream. Hua Yi rolled his eyes at it. The big black wolf was stunned for a moment, then immediately rushed in front of Qin Feiyang, and said, "Big brother, you said that you would give me a divine artifact, you can't go back on your word." Qin Feiyang smiled helplessly, looked at the 4 heaven-defying divine artifacts, and asked, "Fire Lotus, how are they?" "The main body has been severely injured, causing the artifact spirit to be on the verge of death. We have to wait for the artifact spirit to wake up and the main body to repair before we can drip blood to recognize it as the master," Fire Lotus said. Qin Feiyang said, "Then you'll keep an eye on them from now on." These heaven-defying divine artifacts were all very powerful. If he didn't keep an eye on them, once the main body was repaired, they might do something that would make him despair. Keeping an eye on them is no problem. But, for such heaven-defying divine artifacts, they must be willing to follow us, otherwise, even if we drip blood to recognize them as the master, we might not be able to control them. Fire Lotus said worriedly. "When the artifact spirit recovers, tell me immediately, I'll talk to them. If there's no other way, before their main body recovers, we'll destroy them." Qin Feiyang said. "Destroy them? Big brother, these are heaven-defying divine artifacts, it would be a pity to destroy them." Hearing that, the big black wolf hurriedly said. "If we can't convince them, then they're a threat to us, understand?" Qin Feiyang looked at it speechlessly, then looked at Fire Lotus and asked, "Where are the corpses of the 4 ancestral dragons?" "Outside," Fire Lotus said. Qin Feiyang turned and walked out of the ancient castle. In the air above the courtyard, there were divine dragon bodies floating. Even if they were dead, the bodies of the ancestral dragons contained extremely terrifying divine power. Golden Dragon Ancestral Dragon, Fire Dragon Ancestral Dragon, Silver Dragon Ancestral Dragon, Blackhead Ancestral Dragon. There are also 2 black dragons. Qin Feiyang looked at them one by one, and when he saw the 2 black dragons, he was slightly stunned. He was very familiar with the aura of one of the black dragons. It was the Dragon God Palace Master. And the aura of the other black dragon, he also had a familiar feeling. It seemed to be right. The patriarch of the Black Dragon clan. It was him. It was exactly the same as when they met at the seaside. Hua Yi asked, "You recognize it?" "Yes. It's the patriarch of the Black Dragon clan." Qin Feiyang nodded. "Damn, it's a ruthless character. The ancestral dragon and patriarch are both dead, this time the Black Dragon clan will suffer a great loss." Hua Yi smirked. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Not only that, but the 10th elder of the Black Dragon clan was also killed by the axe at the seaside. Huh, serves them right for coming to my 9 Heavens Palace to show off." Hua Yi laughed heartily. Back then, it was the ancestral dragon of the Black Dragon clan who led the dragons to 9 Heavens Palace. This time, it could be said that he got his revenge. That, The golden sea python on the side glanced at Hui, then turned to look at Qin Feiyang and stammered, "Can you give me this golden dragon ancestral dragon's body?" "Give it to you?" Qin Feiyang was taken aback. The golden sea python stuttered. Hui shouted, "If you have something to say, then say it." The golden sea python said, "I want to fuse with its body because its body will definitely allow me to transform into the golden dragon ancestral dragon." Qin Feiyang and the others looked at each other. That's right. The 4 ancestral dragons' bodies were the true ancestral dragon's body. Now that the golden dragon ancestral dragon was dead, maybe the golden sea python could really replace it after fusing with its body and become the new golden dragon ancestral dragon. Hui said, "Even so, why should we give it to you? I was wrong, okay? I was too ignorant and thought that you guys weren't the ancestral dragon's opponent. Now, I believe it. I also promise that I will follow you guys wholeheartedly in the future. Even if I transform into an ancestral dragon in the future, I will never betray you." The golden sea python lay in the void, looking at Qin Feiyang and Hui with a pleading expression. That's right. It had always been pessimistic about Qin Feiyang and the others. But it didn't expect that they would actually kill the ancestral dragon, and 4 ancestral dragons at once. Not long ago, when Qin Feiyang sent the 4 ancestral dragons' bodies to the Black Tortoise world, the shock in its heart couldn't be described with words. "With the slave seal controlling you, you dare to betray us?" Hui smiled disdainfully. "Yes, yes, yes." The golden sea python nodded repeatedly. Hui looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Then why don't you give it to it? You have the final say." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Hui looked at the golden sea python and said, "Take it and go into seclusion. If you don't transform into an ancestral dragon, I will skin you alive." Thank you, thank you." The golden sea python was wild with joy. Taking the golden dragon ancestral dragon's body, it found an open space and began to fuse with it. Fire Lotus retracted her gaze and said with a smile, "This isn't something that can be fused in a short time." The ancestral dragon's cultivation was too strong, and its vitality was also vigorous. It wasn't a simple matter to fuse with it. Hui asked, "Then what should we do with the rest?" "The Dragon God Hall Master and the Black Dragon's bodies are directly sent to the Divine Treasury. As for the ancestral dragon, keep it, it may be useful in the future." "Fire Lotus, I'll leave this matter to you." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Okay." Fire Lotus nodded. Qin Feiyang suddenly looked at Hui and asked, "I didn't notice it just now, but when you killed the dragon's princess, what was her original form?" Hui said, "Sky Dragon." "Sky Dragon?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. That's right. The Sky Dragon is an existence second only to the purple gold divine dragon. And the main ability of the Sky Dragon is healing. It can be said that the healing ability of the Sky Dragon surpasses all pills. Hui said. Qin Feiyang said, "In that case, the Dragon Sovereign is also a Sky Dragon?" "Most likely." Hui nodded. No wonder she was able to repair the broken sunset divine bow in a few moves in the Sky Dragon Sea. Qin Feiyang suddenly understood. However, with the death of the dragon's princess, it could be considered as one less big problem. Because her abilities were really unsolvable. Qin Dage. The dragons suffered heavy losses this time, they will definitely not let this go. You have to be more careful in the future. Because without the slaughter domain, not to mention the dragon sovereign, even the ancestral dragon can kill you. Fire Lotus warned. I know. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, "Where's Hong Yi?" "In the cultivation room on the second floor of the ancient castle. Every time he wakes up, I will knock him unconscious. Now looking at his head, I can't bear to do it." Fire Lotus covered her mouth and laughed. Qin Feiyang was stunned. Then how miserable was Hong Yi? He entered the ancient castle and went straight to the cultivation room on the second floor. When he saw Hong Yi, the corner of his mouth couldn't help but twitch. At this moment, Hong Yi's head was full of bulges. Could it be that Fire Lotus said she couldn't bear to do it? Because there was no place to do it. Qin Feiyang closed the slaughter domain, picked up Hong Yi, and prepared to leave the ancient castle. At this time, Hui Yi ran over and looked at Qin Feiyang, saying, "Take me out with you." "What are you going out for?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. "I'm going to the major sea regions to see if there's an ancestral dragon overseeing them," Hui Yi said. Qin Feiyang nodded and said, "Then you have to be careful." "Don't worry." Hui Yi smiled. Qin Feiyang waved his hand, and the three appeared outside. Hui Yi said, "Give me the space-time gate too." Qin Feiyang was stunned. Hui Yi said, "I want to go back to the Ninth Heaven Palace to take a look." "You won't be worried, right? Fire Lotus is with me. Do you think I'm afraid you'll run away?" Qin Feiyang shook his head, took out the space-time gate, and handed it to Hui Yi. "Despicable. You only know how to use her to threaten me." Hui Yi looked at Qin Feiyang with disdain, and then began to leave through an altar. "Is this considered threatening?" Qin Feiyang touched his nose, looking a little stunned. Chapter 2470. Shaking his head, Qin Feiyang took out the image crystal. Buzz. Soon, a shadow appeared. It was Jiang Dafei. "Young lord, you did a great job this time. It's so satisfying." Jiang Dafei was excited. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "I'll give you a task." Jiang Dafei was taken aback and hurriedly said, "Please tell me. Announce what the dragons have done in the past few years, as well as the fact that the princess and the black dragons impersonated Lin Yi." Qin Feiyang said. The dragons used this incident to make the Dragon Slayer Temple the target of public criticism. Naturally, he had to give them a taste of their own medicine. As long as the truth was made public, those who were originally neutral would inevitably start to lean towards the Dragon Slayer Temple. Even the followers of the dragons would probably be dissatisfied and turn to support the Dragon Slayer Temple. Announce? How would I dare to do this? Jiang Dafei was shocked. Wasn't announcing these things courting death? Qin Feiyang said, "I didn't ask you to announce it. Just spread it secretly." "Okay then. I'll do it myself." Jiang Dafei nodded. He didn't feel at ease leaving it to others, even his confidants. Send me a message when you're done. I'll send you to the Black Tortoise Realm to cultivate." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Thank you, young lord." Jiang Dafei was overjoyed and said gratefully. Qin Feiyang turned off the image crystal, took a phantom pill, and changed into Li Bu-er's appearance. He continued to suppress his cultivation to the level of a war god and then looked down at Hong Yi. After a while, Hong Yi woke up. "It hurts." He rubbed his head immediately. However, when his hands touched his head, he froze. "What's going on? Why are there so many bumps? Who is it? How preposterous." He actually dared to make a move behind his back. "You're awake." Qin Feiyang looked down at Hong Yi and smiled. Hong Yi was stunned. He looked up at Qin Feiyang and said angrily, "Did you hit me?" "Why would I hit you?" Qin Feiyang was speechless. Hong Yi frowned and said, "Then what's with these big meat buns on my head?" Qin Feiyang coughed and said with a smile, "It's Chao De Yuan." Chao De Yuan? Hong Yi was slightly taken aback. After carefully recalling for a moment, he nodded and said, yes, it was him. At that time, I was talking to you when he suddenly knocked me out from behind." "But why did he hit me?" Qin Feiyang said, "He must have gone crazy." "Crazy? Then where is he now? How dare he hit me? Watch how I teach him a lesson." Hong Wan said angrily. Qin Feiyang shook his head and said, "He had something to do and left. I don't know where he went." When Hong Yi heard this, he immediately said angrily, "Damn thing, don't let me catch you." Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Let's go back to the Dragon God Hall first." "What about the divine pill?" Hong Wan looked at Qin Feiyang flatteringly. "Don't worry, I'll give you a few more when we go back," Qin Feiyang said. "Okay." Hong Yi smiled and opened an altar. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly and said, "Did you forget something?" "What is it?" Hong Wan was suspicious. Qin Feiyang said helplessly, "Send me to your spatial divine item." "Yes, yes, yes." Hong Yi patted his head and sent Qin Feiyang to the spatial divine item before stepping on the altar. After smoothly returning to the Dragon God Hall, Qin Feiyang took out 3 healing pills and handed them to Hong Wan. Hong Wan was overjoyed as if he had received a treasure. Qin Feiyang said, "Don't give these divine pills to others." "Why?" Hong Wan was puzzled. "I don't want to cause a sensation. In short, I just want to keep a low profile and cultivate in the Dragon God Hall," Qin Feiyang said. "I see. Don't worry. I won't be stupid enough to give them to others. After all, these are life-saving divine pills." Hong Wan smiled. Qin Feiyang said, "Then let's establish a contract bridge." "It's my honor." Hong Wan immediately took out the image crystal. After establishing the contract, Hong Wan put away the divine pills and returned to the law enforcement hall happily. How could such a thing happen? The 4 ancestral dragons were killed and the divine artifact was stolen. Who is this Qin Feiyang? His strength is actually so terrifying. Along the way, Hong Wan soon heard about what happened in the plains not long ago. No way. When did such a big thing happen? Hong Wan was shocked. He looked at the disciples who were discussing and flew down. "Greetings, enforcers." Several disciples immediately bowed in respect. "What did you say just now? The 4 ancestral dragons were killed?" Hong Wan frowned. "You don't know about such a big thing?" The disciples looked at him in surprise. "Answer whatever I ask you. Why are you talking so much nonsense?" Hong Wan said angrily. "Yes, yes, yes. Not only the 4 ancestral dragons were killed, but the Hall Master is also dead. I heard that even the Chief Hall Master Yi Zhong risked his life to escape. Just now, Lord Long Zun also came to our Dragon God Hall. He seemed to be looking for Yi Zhong." The disciples said. "When did this happen?" Hong Wan was surprised. "Not long ago, on the plains outside the Dragon God mountain range. It's too terrifying. Although we weren't there, I heard from those who know that Qin Feiyang is simply a god descending to the mortal world." The faces of the disciples were filled with shock. "Qin Feiyang?" Hong Wan was stunned. Who was this? Although he was an enforcer of the Dragon God Hall, his authority was limited and he didn't know about Qin Feiyang's situation. "I have to go back and ask around." Hong Wan muttered, opened the altar, and quickly returned to the enforcer hall. In a certain hall, Long Zun stared at Yi Zhong angrily and shouted, "How are you going to explain this to me?" "What should I explain? You also know that I didn't agree with this plan at first. Let's talk about it later." At that time on the plains, I had already told this hall master of the Northern Dragon God Hall that the situation wasn't right and he shouldn't be impulsive. It was he who didn't listen and acted rashly. Now that you're here to blame me, who should I look for? Yi Zhong looked at Long Zun with dissatisfaction. "You still have a reason?" Long Zun was furious. This plan was controlled by Her Highness. I was just assisting from the side, so the responsibility is not mine. Yi Zhong said. Good, good, good. You're right. Then go and find Qin Feiyang for me now. Long Zun said angrily. To be honest, I don't think I have the ability. Because I haven't seen him before, I always thought it was an exaggeration. This time, after witnessing it with my own eyes, although I don't know much about him at present, I can already see that he is not a simple character. Although he is just a junior, in some ways, he is more terrifying than us. Yi Zhong said. I knew you would answer this way. Long Zun snorted coldly. Sigh. Yi Zhong sighed, looked at Long Zun, and suggested, why don't we talk to him? Talk to him about what? Doesn't this show that I, Long Zun, am afraid of him? Think about it carefully. I didn't ask you to come to the Northern Dragon God Hall for your retirement. Long Zun said coldly, then turned and left. Qin Badian, why is your descendant so difficult to deal with? What a headache. Yi Zhong rubbed his forehead and couldn't help but feel irritated. Time flew by. 3 days later. The news that Princess Dragons and Black Dragons pretended to be Lin Yi's master spread wildly in Divine Prefecture. I didn't expect all this to be a trick of the dragons. I must have been blind back then to actually believe their nonsense. Thanks to that person named Qin Feiyang and Hui Yi. Otherwise, we would have died on the plane. These beasts simply don't treat us as humans. Can any of you contact the people of the Dragon Slayer Temple? I will join the Dragon Slayer Temple and kill all these trash. There was no suspense. As soon as this news spread, the dragons fell into deep trouble. Everyone was cursing behind their backs. Many dragons' diehard fans couldn't help but change their minds. The dragons despise humans so much. Is it really worth it to serve the dragons? 3 days outside. The ancient castle had been here for 300 years. After Qin Feiyang sent Hongyi away, he stayed in the ancient castle, cultivating while guarding the 4 heaven-defying artifacts. 300 years had passed. The body of the heaven-defying artifacts had healed, but the artifact spirit had not awakened. 300 years later, the Golden Sea Python was still fusing with the Golden Dragon Ancestral Dragon. Feng Daji's divine soul was still far from condensing a complete divine soul. Buzz. On this day, the image crystal rang. It was Jiang Dafei. Jiang Dafei said, the news has been spread out, and it has a great impact on the dragons. That's expected. Qin Feiyang nodded. Also, what everyone is most curious about now is your identity. I often hear people talking about who Qin Feiyang is. Who is Hui Yi? The people of the Divine Prefecture are full of admiration for you. There are even many people who want to join you. And the higher-ups of the Dragon Slayer Temple also have a high opinion of you. Jiang Dafei laughed. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and said, paper can't wrap fire. You can spread my identity. Okay. Jiang Dafei nodded. What about the list? Qin Feiyang asked. I've got it. Jiang Dafei said. Okay, I'll ask Li Changhe and Wang Daoyuan to go to you directly. Qin Feiyang nodded and asked, are you done with your work? I want to go to you now. But the Lord of the Dragon God Temple is dead, and I'm the only one in charge of the Holy Dragon City now. I'm afraid I can't leave for the time being. Jiang Dafei said regretfully. It's a good thing. Take the opportunity to perform well. When the new messenger of the dragons arrives and sees how well you manage the Holy Dragon City, he might take the initiative to make you the city lord. Qin Feiyang said with a smile. Jiang Dafei said, I'll do my best. But you can't fall behind in your cultivation. Since you're following me, you can't always stay in the same place. You have to aim for the eternal realm. Qin Feiyang said. I'll keep that in mind. Jiang Dafei nodded. Okay. I'll ask Li Changhe and the others to go to you. After Qin Feiyang finished speaking, he turned off the image crystal and sent a message to Li Changhe and Wang Daoyuan. After receiving the message, the two of them were also overjoyed. With the list, the task was much easier. The two of them immediately changed their appearances and went to the Holy Dragon City to find Jiang Dafei. Chapter 2471. Half a month later. Hui Yi sent another message. There was indeed an ancestral dragon guarding the inner sea of the 4 great seas. It was almost impossible for Qin Feiyang to collect enough blood to open the third stage. In the future, he had to keep a low profile so as not to get into trouble. That young man had not appeared since the last time he came to find Qin Feiyang. On the same day, the nine-heaven realm of the northern region was also in an uproar. The Vice Palace Master Yi Xiaoyao, who had disappeared for a long time, finally returned. But they didn't know that the Vice Palace Master had always been there, but he had changed his identity. However, even when Hui Yi returned, he did not mention this identity to the upper echelons of the Nine-Heaven Palace. In the Great Council Hall, Yi Xiaoyao sat right above. This time, of course, he was showing his true face. His facial features were handsome, and his eyebrows were like swords. He was about 1.8 meters tall, neither fat nor thin, and his entire body exuded the aura of a superior. There was also a fire lotus pattern between his eyebrows. The Great Elder, the other 9 Great Elders, Shengguan Fenglan, and a group of upper echelons sat respectfully at the side. Not bad. I haven't been back for so long, and there hasn't been any trouble in the Nine-Heaven Palace. Yi Xiaoyao chuckled. Hearing this, the big shots looked at each other and couldn't help but smile bitterly. What's wrong? Yi Xiaoyao looked at them suspiciously. The Great Elder said, Vice Palace Master, you really don't know what happened these years? Yi Xiaoyao was stunned and asked suspiciously, are you talking about Qin Feiyang? It seems that you know. There's also a person called Hui Yi who claims to be your disciple. The Great Elder said. Cough cough. Yi Xiaoyao coughed dryly and nodded, Hui Yi is indeed my disciple. The Great Elder was speechless. We don't object to you taking in disciples, but no matter what, you should have told us in advance. If I had told you in advance, would I have been able to find out about the chaos in the Nine-Heaven Palace? Parasites like Feng Yuan should have been eliminated long ago. And some elders. He's also a person of virtue and prestige in our northern region, but what kind of trash are his disciples? Yi Xiaoyao said angrily, glancing at the second elder. Plop. Second elder's body trembled. He immediately knelt on the ground and said, I was wrong. Please punish me, Vice Palace Master. You also know that you're wrong? Then when Hui Yi and Qin Feiyang exposed Yu Zijie in the Great Council Hall, did you still protect him? Yi Xiaoyao shouted. Back then, Yu Zijie had colluded with Yin Hui to frame Qin Feiyang and the others. It had caused quite a stir in the northern region. The second elder lowered his head and said, I'm sorry, it's my fault. I was confused for a moment and I'm willing to accept the punishment. If I wanted to punish you, do you think you would still be alive? As Yi Xiaoyao spoke, he released a trace of his aura. Everyone's eyes trembled. This aura seemed to be even stronger than before. Vice Palace Master, you, the first elder looked at Yi Xiaoyao in disbelief. Not bad. I've already stepped into the initial imperishable level. Yi Xiaoyao nodded. Initial immortal. A look of ecstasy appeared on everyone's faces. In the northern region, an initial imperishable realm expert was absolutely invincible. I see. You were cultivating in seclusion all these years when you disappeared. The first elder suddenly understood. That's right. Yi Xiaoyao nodded and looked at the second elder. Tell me, if I wanted to kill you, would you still be alive today? Thank you for not killing me, Vice Palace Master. The second elder hurriedly bowed. Be a good person in the future and do things honestly. I don't want to see such things happen again. Yi Xiaoyao withdrew his aura and said. Yes. The second elder nodded. Yi Xiaoyao said, also, let me tell you a piece of good news. The ancestral dragon of the Black Dragon clan has died. What? Everyone looked at each other. There's another news. The palace master is still alive. Yi Xiaoyao threw out another piece of explosive news. The palace master is still alive? How is that possible? The group of people was dumbfounded. Especially the first elder. He wanted to believe it, but he didn't dare to. Since the palace master is alive, why didn't she come back? Where is she now? Shangguan Fenglan came back to her senses and asked Yi Xiaoyao. She has something to do. She won't come back for the time being. Yi Xiaoyao shook his head and said, it's also possible that she will never come back. Never come back? Everyone was stunned. The first elder asked suspiciously, what do you mean? You will understand in the future. Don't ask any other questions. I have to leave again later. All the affairs of the Jiutian Palace will still be handled by the first elder. Yi Xiaoyao said. You're leaving again? The first elder was slightly stunned. A trace of displeasure crept up his face as he said angrily, you're addicted to being a hands-off boss. Yi Xiaoyao smiled embarrassedly and said, capable people do more work. The first elder rolled his eyes. All right, all of you can leave. First elder, go and call Madman. I'll wait for him here. Yi Xiaoyao waved his hand. Yes. Everyone responded respectfully and turned to leave. Yi Xiaoyao rolled his eyes and looked at Shangguan Fenglan. Fenglan, you stay here first. Shangguan Fenglan was stunned and then responded respectfully. After everyone left, she turned to look at Yi Xiaoyao and bowed. What other orders do you have, Vice Palace Master? That, cough. Yi Xiaoyao coughed and said, I heard from my disciple that the two of you, Shangguan Fenglan, couldn't help but blush. Yi Xiaoyao smiled and said, as long as you are both willing, I won't object. Vice Palace Master, this, Shangguan Fenglan was at a loss for a moment. How old are you? Why are you still shy? Give me a straightforward answer. Do you like him or not? Yi Xiaoyao said. Shangguan Fenglan lowered her head, and her face was as red as an apple. She murmured, I like him. Yi Xiaoyao was delighted and nodded. That's right. If you love him, you should say it out loud. When my disciple comes back, I will personally grant you a marriage. Thank you, Vice Palace Master. Shangguan Fenglan said. All right, you can leave. Yi Xiaoyao waved his hand. Shangguan Fenglan blushed and turned to run out. Yi Xiaoyao touched his chin narcissistically and chuckled. So Lan, wasn't joking. She really likes me. Wait. She likes Hua Yi, not Yi Xiaoyao. If she finds out that I am Hua Yi in the future, will she fall out with me on the spot? Should I call her back now and confess? No. If she falls out with me, then I won't have any hope in the future. What should I do? The more he thought about it, the more distressed Yi Xiaoyao became. Soon. Accompanied by steady footsteps, a young man in black walked into the hall. It was Madman. You're still willing to come back? When Madman saw Yi Xiaoyao, he didn't seem to have much respect. Yi Xiaoyao was speechless. Hey, I'm still the Vice Palace Master. What does it have to do with me? Madman sat at the table casually, crossing his legs and raising his eyebrows. Yi Xiaoyao said angrily, can't you change your personality? I'm born with it. I can't change it. Cut the crap. If you have something to say, say it. I'm very busy. Madman began to get impatient. Yi Xiaoyao shook his head and smiled bitterly. He sized up Madman and nodded. Not bad, you've already stepped into the early stage of the Paragon God realm. So. Compared to you, I definitely can't compare. Madman said. Yi Xiaoyao said, but do you know? Qin Feiyang has already stepped into the half-step Paragon God realm. So fast. Madman suddenly stood up and stared at Yi Xiaoyao in shock. Back then, Qin Batian surpassed you. Now, Qin Feiyang has surpassed you again. Your title of genius is a bit unworthy. Yi Xiaoyao chuckled. When Madman heard this, he returned to his seat with a look of indifference. Yi Yi Xiaoyao looked at Madman in a daze. This reaction was different from what he imagined. I'm not a genius to begin with. It's you boring people who forced it on me. Madman pursed his lips. The corner of Yi Xiaoyao's mouth twitched. He said angrily, your foster father's death was a huge blow to you. We all know that, but now that you've taken your revenge, can't you be more serious? Foster father, Madman muttered. Back then, your foster father was also a famous figure in the northern region. As his foster son, you don't have to be very promising, but at least you can't smear his name. Let's talk about it later. The Grand Elder also had high hopes for you and treated you as his own grandson. Can you bear to see him disappointed? Although you've been in seclusion for the past few years, everyone can see that you have no fighting spirit at all. Yi Xiaoyao said. Madman frowned. You specifically called me here to say this? I want to cheer you up. Your talent is not inferior to Qin Feiyang. As long as you bring out your fighting spirit, you will definitely have amazing achievements in the future. I sincerely hope that you can become the future pillar of Empyrean Palace. No. You can't be too narrow-minded. You have to be a man who stands at the peak of the ancient world. Yi Xiaoyao said. Madman frowned. A person's life should be grand and spectacular. Think about it carefully. If you've thought it through, go to the Sky Dragon's Sea tomorrow morning and wait for me. I'll bring you to a place. If you don't go, then I'll take it that I've misjudged you. Yi Xiaoyao said. Not interested. Madman got up and walked out directly. This guy. Yi Xiaoyao shook his head, his expression filled with helplessness. But in fact, he didn't know that Madman's heart was in a mess at this moment. Foster father, old man, do you all also hope that I can become someone like Qin Batian? But what's the point of becoming such a person, late at night? In the outer sect, at the peak of an uninhabited mountain, the madman stood by himself. He looked up at the starry sky, and his dark eyes were filled with an unprecedented confusion. Of course it's meaningful. Because we humans need fair treatment, need a peaceful world, and all these need to rely on our own hands and hard work to obtain. A hoarse voice suddenly sounded behind Madman. Chapter 2472. Old Man. Madman was slightly taken aback. He turned around and saw a Grand Elder standing not far away with a kind face. Madman frowned and asked, when did you come? Seeing you come back from the meeting hall with a heavy heart, I was worried, so I followed you. Grand Elder laughed hoarsely and walked to Madman's side. Madman said unhappily, not bad, now you know to follow me. Who talks like that? I'm worried about you. If it was someone else, do you think I would care about them? The Great Elder was fuming with rage. Who wants you to care? Madman pursed his lips, but a warm feeling flowed in his heart. Grand Elder shook his head helplessly and smiled. I don't know what the Vice Palace Master said to you. However, you have always been this old man's pride. Do what you want to do, don't leave any regrets in your life. Then he patted Madman's shoulder and left without saying anything else. Madman was silent. Seeing Grand Elder about to disappear, Madman suddenly turned around and looked at Grand Elder's back. He shouted, Old man, you have to take care of yourself. Although I'm old, I don't need others to take care of me. When the time comes, you're not young anymore, hurry up and find a woman. I still want to wait until I retire to hug my great-grandson and enjoy the happiness of family. Grand Elder waved his hand without looking back and disappeared from Madman's sight. Old man. Madman cursed, but there was a trace of a smile on his face. Fine. As you wish, I'll go out and explore. I'll let the dragons, the ancient world, and the entire world tremble under my feet. At this moment, he was like a different person from before, emitting a shocking sharpness. The next day. Divine Land. Inside the ancient castle. Qin Feiyang was still guarding beside the four heaven-defying artifacts. Wang. Suddenly, the image crystal began to move. Qin Feiyang opened his eyes and took out the image crystal. A figure quickly appeared. It was Hui. Didn't you go to the northern region? How can you still send me a message? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. You're back, Hui said. So fast? Qin Feiyang was surprised. How long can it take to go back and take a look? Let's not talk about this for now. Come to the Fenghua brothel. I have a surprise for you. Hui laughed. Surprise? Qin Feiyang was slightly surprised and asked, which room? 8th floor, private room number 3. After Hui finished speaking, he turned off the image crystal. So mysterious. Qin Feiyang shook his head and stood up to look outside the door. He shouted, Fire Lotus, I'm going out for a while. Come in and help me keep an eye on them. All right. Fire Lotus's voice could be heard. Without waiting for Fire Lotus to come in, Qin Feiyang left the castle and sent a message to Hong Yi. After Qin Feiyang left the ancient castle, the 4 heaven-defying artifacts floating in the void seemed to move slightly. Cave abode. Qin Feiyang looked at Hong Yi's shadow and said with a smile, accompany me on a trip. Hong Yi was startled, and said, I'm very busy these few days, can we change the time? 3 life divine pills. Qin Feiyang said. Hearing this, Hong Yi was overjoyed, and nodded, okay, I'll be right there. With that, the shadow disappeared. In less than 50 breaths, Hong Yi ran into the cave abode. Qin Feiyang asked curiously, what are you busy with? This, Hong Yi hesitated for a moment, then shook his head and said, it's nothing, I'm just busy. What are you going out for now? Inviting you to the Fenghua brothel for a drink. Qin Feiyang laughed, but there was a trace of ridicule in the depths of his eyes. Being busy was just an excuse. His real purpose was to ask for benefits from him. However, he liked this kind of person. Because this kind of person was easier to control. Invite me to a drink? Hong Yi was stunned, and hurriedly said, how would I dare, if I were to treat you, it would be me. It's all the same, let's go. Qin Feiyang laughed. Okay. Hong Yi nodded and sent Qin Feiyang to the space divine object. Then, he opened the altar and left the Dragon God Palace. Fenghua brothel. Qin Feiyang and Hong Yi entered the restaurant, and a waiter immediately came up to greet them with a smile. Lord Hong Yi, long time no see. Obviously. Hong Yi was a frequent customer here. Hong Yi looked at the waiter proudly and said indifferently, I've been too busy recently, so I don't have time to come. Do you still have a private room? Yes. The waiter nodded repeatedly, retreated to the side, and said with a flattering smile, Lord, please. The 2 of them followed Hui upstairs. Isn't he Li Bu? Why would he come to the Fenghua brothel with Hong Yi? Not bad, you've built a good relationship with the law enforcers so quickly. Some people whispered. These people were all disciples of the Dragon God Palace. When they were free, they would come to the Fenghua brothel to eat and drink. Li Bu? Could it be the person who killed the island master of the first island in public? Someone asked in a low voice. Although these things happened in the Dragon God Palace, it had long been spread out. It was just that they usually didn't see Qin Feiyang in the Holy Dragon City, so they didn't talk much about it. Who else could it be if not him? Not only did he kill the island master, but all the people who passed the assessment this time also died in his hands. Let me tell you, not only does he have the support of the law enforcement hall master, but he also has an ultimate powerhouse protecting him. An ultimate powerhouse. Yes. I was on the first island at that time and saw it with my own eyes. I've also heard about this matter. I thought it was a bit exaggerated, but I didn't expect it to be true. It seems that this person has a strong background. The discussion became more and more intense. But Qin Feiyang turned a deaf ear and went straight to the 5th floor. The waiter smiled and said, "The 4th private room on the 5th floor is still empty, please." Qin Feiyang patted Hong Yi. "What's wrong?" Hong Yi was stunned. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "I suddenly thought of something. You go and have a drink first, I'll come later." Hong Yi, "Then don't let me wait too long." "I won't. Just a little while." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Okay." Hong Yi nodded and followed the waiter to the private room. Qin Feiyang glanced at Hong Yi's back, quickly rushed to the 8th floor, walked to the door of the 3rd private room, and gently knocked on the door. Soon, the door opened. A familiar figure came into sight. It was Hui Yi. Hui Yi looked outside the door and asked, "Where's Hong Yi?" "I sent him away." Qin Feiyang smiled, entered the room, and asked, "What surprise have you prepared for me?" Hui Yi closed the door and said, "Guess." Qin Feiyang looked at Hui Yi, frowned, and suddenly his face changed. He said in surprise, "You didn't bring Shengguanqiu, did you?" "Shengguanqiu?" Hui Yi was stunned and said in surprise, "How did you know? What are you doing?" Qin Feiyang glared at Hui Yi angrily and quickly glanced around the private room. But in the tea room, bedroom, and dining room, there was no one, and he didn't sense anyone's aura. "Look at how scared you are, I'm just teasing you." Hui Yi laughed. Qin Feiyang's face darkened. Shengguanqiu is the chief steward of the treasure school, and also the favorite of the pavilion master and deputy pavilion master. "Do you think I can bring her here?" Hui Yi despised. Qin Feiyang frowned and said, "Then what's the surprise? Come out." Hui Yi looked at the bathroom and smiled. As his voice fell, the door of the bathroom immediately opened, and a young man in black walked out slowly. "Seen your brother crazy?" Qin Feiyang looked at the young man in black in surprise. "Huh, boy, long time no see, did you miss me?" Madman laughed loudly. "It's really this guy. You haven't changed at all." Qin Feiyang also smiled, stepped forward, and gave Crazy a bear hug, saying, "I didn't expect you to come. I have nowhere to go. I heard from Hui Yi that you're doing well in Divine Land, so I came to join you. Am I welcome?" Madman chuckled. "You have nowhere to go?" Qin Feiyang was speechless. With this person's talent, he would attract attention wherever he went. After all, this was a monster who could not only create his own divine art, but also upgrade it to the legendary level. "Don't hug me so tightly, okay? I'm not a beauty. If I had known, I would have brought Shengguanqiu to you and let you hug her slowly." Crazy pushed Qin Feiyang away with a look of disgust. Qin Feiyang's face darkened. "How is it? Is it a surprise?" Hui Yi looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "It's more than a surprise." Qin Feiyang said with a smile. To be honest, someone like Crazy came to him because he thought highly of him. "Take me in?" Crazy said. "Of course." Qin Feiyang nodded. Crazy said, "All right then, I'll follow you from now on, but don't order me around like I'm your underling." "Do I have the guts?" Qin Feiyang was helpless. Not to mention anything else, just the help Crazy gave him in the northern region, he had to repay him well. "I heard from Hui Yi that your castle has changed a lot. Can I go in and take a look?" Crazy asked curiously. "Of course." Qin Feiyang smiled and sent a voice transmission to Hui Yi. "Does he know that you're Yi Xiaoyao?" "He doesn't know." Hui Yi said to himself. "Why do you still hide it from him?" Qin Feiyang was puzzled. "For fun." Hui Yi laughed secretly. Qin Feiyang was speechless and said, "Fire Lotus, put on your mask." "I'm wearing it." Fire Lotus quickly replied. Crazy looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "What are you standing there for? Let's go to the castle." Qin Feiyang smiled. With a wave of his hand, the three of them immediately appeared in the castle. Crazy, long time no see. Fire Lotus said with a smile. You're still wearing a mask? Madman was stunned and teased, is it because you're too ugly and don't dare to show your face? Fire Lotus was helpless. How could he be so sarcastic? Crazy also began to size up the castle. After wandering around, he walked out of the castle and looked at the medicinal field outside. Damn, so many medicinal herbs. And the energy of the spirit vein and the essence of the crystal vein are too terrifying. Even Empyrean Palace can't compare. Crazy was dumbfounded. How long had it been since he came to Divine Land? Divine Land is a place full of surprises. You'll soon fall in love with this place. Qin Feiyang smiled. I'm already in love. You're really something. You've been hiding it from me. This black tortoise world is an independent small world. Crazy was dissatisfied. We weren't close before after all. Qin Feiyang smiled embarrassedly. Madman took a deep breath and retracted his gaze. He looked at Qin Feiyang and said, all right, let's get down to business. Business? Qin Feiyang was stunned. They had just arrived in Divine Land. What business was there? Chapter 2473. Madman said, enter the Dragon God Palace. You want to enter the Dragon God Palace? Qin Feiyang was surprised. Wasn't it good to cultivate in the castle? Why did he want to enter the Dragon God Palace? Yes. But I'm not entering the Dragon God Palace for cultivation, but for you. Madman said. For me? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. Of course. Hui Yi told me about your situation. You've been going in and out every day, always looking for Hong Yi. It's not a long-term solution. Madman said. So that's how it is. Qin Feiyang nodded in realization. After Madman went in, he could let Madman bring him in and out of the Dragon God Palace. This was undoubtedly much more convenient. He could also be at ease. Because Madman definitely wouldn't betray him. Moreover, the people in the Dragon God Palace didn't know his relationship with Madman. As long as he did it secretly, even if Madman was controlled by the fate contract, he wouldn't be in any danger. This was indeed a good thing. However, there was a problem. Every 100 years, the Dragon God Palace would recruit people. In other words, now that Madman wanted to enter, he had no chance. Hui Yi laughed. You have to think of a way to deal with this matter. Qin Feiyang was speechless. I'm just an ordinary disciple in the Dragon God Palace, what can I do? That young man, and this Hong Yi, aren't they both useful? Hui Yi laughed. Young man can't go find him. Because he's too eye-catching. If he enters the Dragon God Palace, senior brother Madman will definitely attract the attention of others. Even attract the attention of the dragons. Qin Feiyang said. That's true. Hui Yi nodded. After all, the young man had offended the dragons. Then let's find Hong Yi. As a law enforcer, it's not a problem to let him help you enter the Dragon God Palace through the back door. Qin Feiyang pondered for a moment and laughed. Hui Yi said, do as you see fit. All right then. I'll go out and talk to him. Qin Feiyang looked at the two and said. Yes. The two of them nodded. Qin Feiyang immediately left the castle and went straight out of the room. A short while later, he went to the 4th private room on the 5th floor and knocked on the door. Come in. Hong Yi's voice sounded in the room. Qin Feiyang pushed open the door and saw Hong Yi sitting at the dining table with one leg crossed over the other as he happily drank wine. On the table, there were several plates of delicious dishes. You're drinking already? Qin Feiyang closed the door and said with a smile. Of course. Come and sit down. Hong Yi stood up and invited Qin Feiyang to sit beside him. After Qin Feiyang sat down, he immediately picked up the wine pot on the table and poured a cup for Qin Feiyang. He smiled and said, "Try it, this is the best wine in the Fenghua restaurant." Qin Feiyang picked up the wine cup and sniffed it. He nodded and said, "It's really good." In fact, in his opinion, no matter how good the wine was, it only had the same taste. Qin Feiyang took a sip and put down the wine cup. He looked at Hong Yi and said, "I don't like to beat around the bush." Hong Yi was stunned and looked at him suspiciously. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, "Actually, I invited you to the Fenghua restaurant this time because I have something to ask you for help. I told you, there's no such thing as a free lunch in this world." Hong Yi shook his head and smiled bitterly. Then he said, "But who are the two of us? Your business is my business. There's no harm in saying it. It's like this. I have a good brother who wants to enter the Dragon God Palace. But as you know, the Dragon God Palace only recruits once every 100 years. So I want to ask you, do you have any way to let him enter the Dragon God Palace now?" Qin Feiyang looked at Hong Yi expectantly. Hong Yi was stunned and asked, "That's it?" Seeing Hong Yi's reaction, Qin Feiyang knew that it was not a big deal for Hong Yi. He immediately smiled and said, "Then I'll leave it to you. It's a piece of cake. But there's a condition." Hong Yi said. "What condition?" Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Hong Yi, he must be loyal to the dragons. Of course. Qin Feiyang nodded. "Are you sure? Brotherly, let's not beat around the bush. You even dared to kill the island master. Will you be loyal to the dragons? I'm afraid what you want is just the resources of the dragons." Hong Yi smiled. "Huh," Qin Feiyang laughed and didn't talk nonsense. He directly took out 10 life divine pills from his Qinkuan bag and placed them on the table. He looked at Hong Yi and said with a smile, "I'll leave this matter to you." Hong Yi's eyes lit up, and he immediately put them away. He patted his chest and said, "Okay, leave it to me." Qin Feiyang smiled and waved his hand. Madman and Hui Yi appeared. However, Hui Yi changed his appearance into Chao Deyuan's appearance. "Chao Deyuan. You bastard, you actually hit me from behind." As soon as he saw Hui Yi, Hong Yi jumped up with a face full of anger. "Brother, calm down, calm down. I was just joking at that time. All the expenses today will be paid by me as an apology." Hui Yi said with a smile. "That's more like it." Hong Yi coldly snorted and returned to his seat. Qin Feiyang pointed at Madman and looked at Hong Yi with a smile. "Let me introduce him. He's my good brother, known as Madman." "Madman?" Hong Yi was stunned. To be called Madman, he was definitely not a good person. Looking at Madman curiously, Hong Yi said, "No matter how powerful you are outside, once you enter the Dragon God Palace, you must be obedient." "I know." Madman nodded and took the initiative to pour a cup of wine. He smiled and said, "To you." "Huh, I like people who drink wine." Hong Yi laughed and grabbed the wine cup. He clinked it with Madman's and then drank it in one gulp. Madman didn't change his appearance. Because long before the dragons came to the northern region, he had already gone into seclusion to cultivate. Although later, he went to Dongling to inform Qin Feiyang and Hui Yi, he also avoided the dragons. In the early years, when the dragons went to Nine Heavens Palace to force them to hand over Qin Batian, because his cultivation was too weak to participate in the battle, he didn't appear. Therefore, the dragons didn't know him. As long as the dragons didn't go to the northern region to inquire, they wouldn't know that Madman was from Nine Heavens Palace. Furthermore, the dragon clan would not go out of their way to investigate a nobody in the divine prefecture. They drank until evening and finally finished. After Hui Yi paid the bill, the four stood up and directly opened the altar and returned to the Dragon God Palace. On the stone stairs. "Do whatever I say later, don't talk nonsense," Hong Yi whispered. Madman nodded. As for Qin Feiyang and Hui Yi, they were in Hong Yi's spatial divine item. Soon, the two climbed up the stone stairs and saw an old man sitting cross-legged on the square. It was Yi Zhong. After a few days, his injuries had already healed. Sitting in the middle of the square, he closed his eyes and meditated. Hong Yi walked over and bowed. "Greetings, Lord Grand Hall Master." "What's the matter?" Yi Zhong opened his eyes and looked at Hong Yi. Hong Yi bowed and said, "I have a cousin who dreams of entering the Dragon God Palace. I hope Lord Grand Hall Master can help me." Yi Zhong was slightly taken aback. He looked at Madman outside and asked, "Is it him?" "Yes." Hong Yi nodded and shouted at Madman, "Why aren't you bowing to Lord Grand Hall Master?" "Greetings, Lord." Madman bowed. Yi Zhong sized up Madman and looked at Hong Yi. "Since you want to enter the Dragon God Palace so much, why didn't you come in during the previous assessment?" "Lord, I'm not afraid of you laughing, but this assessment is too dangerous. My cousin's cultivation is not good, so Hong Yi smiled flatteringly. Yi Zhong said unhappily, "You are cheating for personal gain. You have to know that you are the law enforcer of our Dragon God Palace. You should be fair and just." Yes. I know my mistake. I won't dare to do it again. Lord, please make an exception. Just this once." Hong Yi begged. Yi Zhong frowned and turned to look at Madman. "Why do you want to enter the Dragon God Palace?" Madman said, "I want to be like my cousin and share the worries of the dragons." Yi Zhong said, "This old man wants to hear the truth." "Lord, this is the truth. He is just like me, a loyal follower of the dragons." Hong Yi said. Yi Zhong turned a deaf ear to him and stared at Madman. Madman clenched his fists and said, "I want to become stronger." "What nonsense are you talking about?" Hong Yi stared at Madman angrily. "Huh," Yi Zhong laughed and said, "This old man likes honest people like you. Fine, this old man will make an exception and let you enter the Dragon God Palace." "That works too." Hong Yi was slightly stunned. He thought that he might anger Yi Zhong, but he didn't expect that he would gain Yi Zhong's recognition. Yi Zhong stood up and stepped through the stone door, landing in front of Madman. He took out the Destiny God stone and said, "Drip a drop of blood on it." Madman nodded and cut his finger. A drop of blood fell and landed on the Destiny God stone. Immediately, the blood was absorbed by the Destiny God stone. Madman also immediately felt that there was an invisible shackle on his soul. "Work hard, young man." Yi Zhong laughed hoarsely. "Thank you, Lord." Madman cupped his hands and stepped into the Divine Dragon Island. "Thank you, Lord." Hong Yi also bowed deeply. Then, he opened an altar and called the madman away. The first island. Valley. After Hong Yi appeared, he patted his chest with lingering fear and said, "I was really scared to death just now. Luckily, this main hall master isn't an ordinary person. If it was the previous Dragon God Palace master, you would have already lost your life." Madman laughed, "It's all thanks to you. Don't mention it." Hong Yi waved his hand and called Qin Feiyang and Madman out from the spatial divine item, saying, "Then I'll go back first." "Thank you." Qin Feiyang smiled. "Since I've taken his money, I'll help him." Hong Yi chuckled. He activated another altar and quickly left. Hui Yi looked at the dissipating altar and turned to Qin Feiyang, frowning. "Not killing him? He doesn't know our identities and doesn't know what we've done. Why would he want to kill us?" Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Hui Yi nodded and looked at Madman. "How is it, the Dragon God Palace is stronger than the Nine Heaven Palace? The Divine Land is indeed different." It was an eye-opener. Madman sighed. Whether it was resources or other things, the Divine Land far surpassed the four regions. No wonder the dragons were entrenched in the Divine Land. Chapter 2474. Qin Feiyang smiled. Everything about the divine land, we'll slowly see in the future. Let's go cultivate first. That's right. We can't waste time. Frenzy was a little impatient. 100 years in a day. If he didn't work hard, he would be an idiot that was incurable. Hua Yi said, I'm going for a walk. You guys cultivate. Where are you going? Qin Feiyang was suspicious. Why do you care? Hua Yi glared at him, and then without looking back, he broke through the air and left. This guy. Qin Feiyang shook his head helplessly. But thinking about it, it made sense. Even with the time array, who knew how many years it would take for a beginner imperishable realm cultivator to step into the minor imperishable realm? Going for a walk and relaxing at an appropriate time would be helpful for cultivation. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and brought Frenzy into the cave residence and then into the castle. He looked at Frenzy and smiled. Just find a cultivation room. If you need soul stones, just get them from Fire Lotus. Okay. Frenzy nodded and glanced at each cultivation room. He then entered a cultivation room on the second floor, closed the stone door, and entered a state of cultivation. Qin Feiyang walked to the front of the 4 heaven-defying artifacts and frowned. What's going on? The artifact spirit hasn't awakened yet? This matter can't be rushed. Let's wait. Fire Lotus, who had been shooting arrows, looked at Qin Feiyang and smiled. Li Bu, Suddenly, a shout came from outside. Qin Feiyang was slightly taken aback. It seemed to be the voice of the black-clothed man. Fire Lotus said, this person came to find you for no good reason. You have to be careful. Qin Feiyang nodded and left the castle. When he walked out of the cave residence, he saw the black-clothed man standing above the valley. He asked suspiciously, Island Master, what's the matter? I'm here to remind you that everyone who comes to the Dragon God Palace has a chance to enter the Divine Art Treasury. The black-clothed man said. Divine Art Treasury? Qin Feiyang was taken aback. The black-robed man nodded, yes, there are countless divine arts in the treasury. If you're lucky, you can even get a legendary divine art. Legendary deity technique. Qin Feiyang's eyes lit up. He wasn't interested in other deity arts, but who wouldn't be interested in a legendary deity art? The black-robed man continued, there's even a supreme-level divine art in the treasury. Sovereign-grade divine art? Qin Feiyang was stunned. Don't tell me you've never heard of the sovereign-grade divine arts? The sovereign-level deity technique is above the legendary level, second only to the heaven-defying level deity technique. Even in our Dragon God Palace, there are only a handful of sovereign-level divine arts. Furthermore, not a single disciple possessed an utmost exalted level divine technique. Including me. The black-clothed man said proudly. Supreme divine artifact, supreme divine technique, Qin Feiyang murmured. In other words, there was still room for improvement in the godly dragon art. No. A mere sovereign-grade divine technique was enough? No matter what, it had to be upgraded to the heaven-defying level. The 6-word divine technique was a heaven-defying level deity technique that could ignore the barriers of major realms. When the godly dragon art and other deity techniques were upgraded to the heaven-defying level, coupled with the kill formula, they would be invincible. That's right. The goal was the heaven-defying level deity technique. Qin Feiyang suppressed the emotions in his heart and asked, where's the treasury? The black-clothed man said, in the center of the island, next to the Deacon Hall. There's only one chance, cherish it. With that, the black-clothed man turned and left. Strange, Qin Feiyang looked at the black-clothed man's back. Why would this person be so kind as to specially come to remind him? Could there be something wrong with this? After pondering for a while, Qin Feiyang took the big black wolf out of the ancient castle. What? The big black wolf looked at Qin Feiyang with a dumbfounded face. He was cultivating in seclusion when he suddenly took it out. Go to the deity technique treasury. Qin Feiyang said. Deity technique treasury? The big black wolf was stunned. What the hell was this place? Because he was in seclusion, he didn't hear the conversation between Qin Feiyang and the black-clothed man. It's the martial arts treasury. But the difference is that the martial arts treasury of the Dragon God Palace is full of deity techniques. There's also a sovereign-grade divine technique. So we can't waste this opportunity. What if you're lucky and get this sovereign-grade divine technique? Qin Feiyang laughed. I'm not that lucky. The big black wolf rolled his eyes and turned back into a big black dog. Although he said something discouraging, there was still some anticipation in his eyes. Maybe he was really lucky and was really found by it. Whoosh! A man and a wolf soared into the sky and flew towards the center of the island like lightning. The first island was the smallest island in the Dragon God Palace, but in the eyes of a man and a wolf, it was huge. According to Qin Feiyang's estimation, it would take half a day to cross the first island. At that time, he was a phenomenal divine lord. Now that he had broken through to the half-step supreme level, although he had improved a lot, it would take at least an hour to cross the first island. And the valley he was in was at the edge of the first island. It would take about an hour to reach the deity technique treasury in the center. Along the way, Qin Feiyang met a lot of people. There were war gods, divine lords, peerless gods, and a few nine heavens realm cultivators. But when they looked at him, their faces were filled with fear. Finally, a towering mountain came into sight. The mountain peak was flattened like a giant axe. There were 2 or 3 palaces. One was golden and dazzling. The other 2 were black and filled with an ancient aura. There were also many people's auras in the nearby mountains. And these auras were very strong. They were all above the peerless god realm. The big black wolf asked suspiciously, "Brother, don't you think it's strange?" "What's strange?" Qin Feiyang was startled and looked at him in confusion. "We've met dozens of nine heavens realm auras along the way. Why don't these nine heavens realm people go to the second, third, or even fourth island to cultivate?" The big black wolf said. Qin Feiyang said, "Didn't the deputy palace master say that newcomers have to stay on the first island? Although that's true, it's easy for them to enter the second island with their strength. Could it be that entering the second and third island doesn't depend on cultivation?" The big black wolf frowned. "I don't know." Qin Feiyang shook his head. While they were talking, a man and a wolf landed on a square on the mountain peak. There was no one in the square. It was dead silent. Deacon Hall, Deity Technique Treasury, Deity Weapon Pavilion? Qin Feiyang looked at the 3 palaces. The Golden Palace was the Law Enforcement Hall. The Black Palace to the left of the Golden Palace was the Deity Technique Treasury. The words Deity Weapon Pavilion were engraved above the Black Palace on the right. And the square was facing the Deacon Hall. Deity Weapon Pavilion? This name, could it be where the deity weapon is stored? The big black wolf was surprised. "I guess so," Qin Feiyang said in a low voice and walked towards the Deacon Hall. The big black wolf hurriedly followed. "You're here so soon. I thought that you would disdain my Dragon God Hall's deity technique treasury." When the man and the wolf entered the Deacon Hall, a voice full of ridicule sounded out. The black-clothed man was sitting at the side of the main hall, drinking tea while looking at Qin Feiyang and the big black wolf. The big black wolf immediately raised his eyebrows and said, "Don't be sarcastic with us here." The black-clothed man's gaze turned cold. "What are you staring at?" The big black wolf bared his teeth. Qin Feiyang dragged the big black wolf and thought, "Keep a low profile." Then, he looked at the black-clothed man and said with a faint smile, "Actually, you really don't have to hate me so much, because I don't have any thoughts about you." The black-clothed man was stunned. Was this considered admitting defeat? "That's true." "All right then. Let's get along peacefully like before." The black-clothed man put down his teacup and got up, leading the man and wolf out of the deacon hall. Qin Feiyang asked curiously, "Island Master, what kind of place is the Divine Weapon Pavilion?" The black-clothed man said proudly, "Of course it's a place where divine weapons are stored. There's also a supreme-level divine weapon inside." Qin Feiyang and the big black wolf looked at each other, a glint flashing in their eyes at the same time. The big black wolf hurriedly asked, "Then how can we enter the Divine Weapon Pavilion?" "I don't know." The black-clothed man shook his head. Hey. Didn't you just say that we'll get along peacefully?" The big black wolf was instantly dissatisfied. The black-clothed man said, "But don't you think that you owe me an apology?" The big black wolf's mouth twitched. A mighty 9 heavens stage perfection, and a divine dragon, was actually so vengeful? Fine. I apologize. I'm sorry, it's my fault. Are you okay now?" The big black wolf said. The black-clothed man's expression eased a lot. He took out a token and threw it to the big black wolf. "What's this?" The big black wolf stood up and caught the token. The token was golden. There was a divine dragon on the front. On the other side, there were the words Dragon God Hall. "This seems to be the identity token of the Dragon God Hall." Qin Feiyang mumbled and took out a golden token from his interspatial ring. The two were exactly the same. "You're just a big dog. I didn't intend to give you an identity token, but seeing that your attitude is okay, I'll give it to you," the black-clothed man said. "Reward?" The big black wolf was speechless. What was the point of this thing? If you want to enter the Divine Weapon Pavilion and the Divine Technique Treasury, you must have a token. The black-clothed man said lightly. "There's such a use?" The big black wolf was surprised. The black-clothed man continued, "But new disciples only have one chance to enter the Divine Technique Treasury for free." Qin Feiyang and the big black wolf looked at each other. The word "free" was the main point. "Then how can I enter the Divine Weapon Pavilion?" Qin Feiyang asked. "Merit." The black-clothed man said. "Merit?" The man and the wolf were stunned. What was that? "Make some contributions to the Dragon God Hall and you can get a certain amount of merit. And the use of merit is not only to enter the Divine Weapon Pavilion, but also to enter the Divine Technique Treasury in the future. And if you want to leave the first island and go to the second, third, and fourth islands to cultivate, you also need different degrees of merit," the black-clothed man said. "So that's how it is." The man and the wolf were enlightened. Going to other islands to cultivate really had nothing to do with cultivation. Qin Feiyang asked, "Then what kind of contribution do you have to make to get merit?" "Mission. Look over there." The black-clothed man pointed to the left side of the gate of the deacon hall. There was a notice board hanging on the wall. On top of it, there were countless small, densely packed words. Chapter 2475. That's all the missions. Of course. The difficulty of the mission is different, so the merit points will definitely be different, the black-clothed man said. Qin Feiyang nodded. Wasn't this the same as the bulletin board of 9 Heaven Palace? The only difference was completing the mission of 9 Heaven Palace was to obtain soul stones. Completing the mission of Dragon God Palace was to obtain merit points. The big black wolf ran up. Captured a divine-level raging flame lion, obtained 10 merit points. Captured a 9 Heaven Realm black cloud beast, obtained 50 merit points. Won Nirvana divine fruit, obtained 2 merit points. Killed Li Da, obtained 30 merit points. Killed Zhao Qi, obtained 40 merit points. The big black wolf was stunned. Capturing beasts, looking for herbs, killing others. Why were there all kinds of missions? Those who are to be killed are basically those who have betrayed us dragons. As for the others, for example, the higher the level of beasts and herbs, the more merit points you will get, the black-clothed man said. Qin Feiyang stepped forward to take a closer look, and asked suspiciously, "Then why isn't there anyone from the Dragon Slayer Palace? For example, Qin Badian?" The black-clothed man was stunned, and said, "Are you kidding? Can you kill Qin Badian?" "No." Qin Feiyang shook his head. "Then what are you talking about?" The black-clothed man sneered. Qin Feiyang shook his head, then dragged the big black wolf, and walked towards the divine art treasury. "Wait." The big black wolf broke free, looked at the black-clothed man and said, "How many merit points do I need to enter the divine art treasury and divine weapon pavilion?" 1,000. The black-clothed man said. "So much?" The big black wolf was speechless. One nirvana divine fruit was only worth 2 merit points. In other words, it required 500 nirvana divine fruits to enter the divine art treasury or divine weapon pavilion. How valuable was 500 nirvana divine fruits? Of course. If he could get a supreme level divine artifact and divine art, it would definitely be worth it. Because no matter how valuable the nirvana divine fruit was, it was far from the supreme level divine artifact and divine art. Let's take a step back. Even if he could only obtain a peak-grade deity art or a deity artifact, it would not be a loss. But the key is, he might not necessarily be able to obtain these high-level divine weapons and divine arts. It could only be a low-grade divine artifact or a low-grade divine art. That would be a huge loss. In other words, the deity arts treasury and the divine weapon pavilion were like casinos that were only suitable for gamblers. Qin Feiyang thought for a while and asked, "How many contribution points do we need to enter the second island?" 10,000, and so on. The black-clothed man said. Qin Feiyang laughed and said, "Forget it then. The first island is actually not bad." And so on. If the second island was 10,000, then the third island would be 20,000, and the fourth island would be 30,000. How many missions would he have to complete in order to accumulate enough merit points? "Let's go." Qin Feiyang looked at the big black wolf and said. The big black wolf nodded, looked at the mission on the bulletin board, and then thoughtfully followed Qin Feiyang towards the deity arts treasury. On the door of the deity arts treasury, there is a small groove. Put the token in and the door will automatically open. Remember, you only have half an hour. Also, don't touch the jade box inside, because once you touch the jade box, the hall will automatically determine that you have chosen it and send you out. The black-clothed man said and turned to enter the assignment hall. Just as he turned around, a cold smile flashed past his eyes. Qin Feiyang glanced at the big black wolf and said, "From the looks of it, you seem to be very interested in the contribution points." "I'm not interested in the contribution points, I'm interested in the divine weapon pavilion and the deity arts treasury. If you don't give me the divine artifact, then I can only think of a way myself." The big black wolf pouted. Qin Feiyang laughed, "I haven't met a suitable one yet." "Come on." The big black wolf looked at him with disdain and asked, "Don't tell me you're not interested?" "Not interested. Isn't it a waste of time to complete these trivial missions? I'm here now purely to try my luck." Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Thinking back to what happened in the martial arts treasury of the Nine Heaven Palace, he couldn't help but be excited. At that time, under the reminder of the Shadowless Man, he obtained 2 legendary divine artifacts at once. It was truly a heaven-defying fortune. Walking in front of the door, Qin Feiyang scanned the door and quickly saw a groove in the middle of the door. The shape was exactly the same as the token. Qin Feiyang grabbed the token and pressed it into the groove. Boom! The door immediately opened. The interior of the hall was extremely spacious and brightly lit. On the rows of iron shelves, there were countless jade boxes. Damn, how many deity arts are there? The big black wolf's eyes were wide open. No matter how many there are, there's only one supreme deity art. Unless it's really dog shit luck, otherwise, the chances are slim. Qin Feiyang shook his head and stepped into the hall. The big black wolf quickly followed, but a light screen suddenly appeared on the door, blocking it outside. And the door also closed. Do I really have to use the token? The big black wolf was stunned. When the door was completely closed, it pressed the token into the groove. The door opened again. This time, the big black wolf entered the hall without any resistance. Just as the door closed again, 3 figures descended on the square outside. An old man in his 70s. A middle-aged man. A thin young man. Their cultivation levels were different. The old man was half a step into the 9th heaven realm. The middle-aged man was a consummate supreme god. The thin young man was a consummate supreme god. The 3 of them landed on the square, glanced at the duty hall, and went straight to the deity art treasury. At the same time, inside the treasury, the big black wolf stared at the jade boxes, wanting to open them, but not daring to. He looked very conflicted and had a headache. Qin Feiyang looked indifferent. The deity art treasury didn't only have 1 floor. There were 2 floors above. In other words, the deity art treasury had a total of 3 floors. Boom! Suddenly, the door opened again. Qin Feiyang and the big black wolf turned around and saw the old man in his 70s, the middle-aged man, and the thin young man enter the deity art treasury one after another. The man and the wolf didn't take it to heart. They continued to look at the jade boxes on the iron shelf. Isn't this Li Boer, brotherly? The old man and the other 2 also saw Qin Feiyang and the big black wolf. The old man immediately smiled and greeted them. Hello. Qin Feiyang nodded politely. I've heard of Brother Li's name. You're really young and promising. The 3 of them walked over and smiled. You're too kind. Qin Feiyang waved his hand and smiled. Did you find a deity art that you like? The old man in his 70s asked with a smile. Qin Feiyang said, it depends on luck. I definitely won't find it. Yes. The 3 of us have come to this deity art treasury a dozen times. But except for one time when we were lucky and found a perfect deity art, the others were all low-tier deity arts. I really regret it. I should have taken these merits and gone to the 2nd island to cultivate. The 3 of them sighed. Qin Feiyang smiled and said, a perfect deity art is not bad. Not bad. If we can find a supreme-level deity art here, then it's truly perfect. The old man in his 70s shook his head. Qin Feiyang asked curiously, has anyone ever found a supreme-level deity art here? Yes. Gu Fan found a supreme-level deity art here more than 1,000 years ago. The old man in his 70s said. Gu Fan? Qin Feiyang was confused. This Gu Fan is really lucky. His cultivation isn't that high. He was only a perfected immortal back then. But just like you, he found a supreme-level deity art the first time he entered the deity art treasury. Comparisons are odious. The old man in his 70s sighed. Qin Feiyang was slightly startled, before he said with a smile, his luck is indeed unbelievable. Isn't that so? Because of this supreme-level deity art, he was able to achieve great success. The island master even made an exception and sent him to the 2nd island without using any merits. Brotherly, I believe that you might have the same luck too. The old man said with a smile. Ha! Qin Feiyang let out a hollow laugh and said in a doubtful tone, if Gu Fan has already taken the supreme-level deity art, what else are we looking for? Brotherly, since it's your first time here, you might not know this, but if someone finds a supreme-level deity art here, the dragons will immediately let another one in. Which means, either way, there must be a supreme-level deity art here. The old man said. I see. Qin Feiyang nodded and brought his fists together with a smile. Thank you for your kind words. I'll take a look upstairs and wish you all the best. Sure. The 3 nodded. Qin Feiyang turned around and led the black wolf to the 2nd floor. The layout of the 2nd floor was similar to the 1st floor. Qin Feiyang scanned the place while transmitting his voice. Big wolf dog, be careful. The black wolf was startled. It turned around and mumbled to Qin Feiyang, what do you mean? Those three are here for something. Qin Feiyang said. Something? The black wolf was startled. How did you know? They seem normal. Normal? If they were normal, why would they come and greet us? Qin Feiyang shook his head. They're just greeting us. How can you tell that they have a purpose? Big brother, your paranoia isn't ordinary at all. The black wolf was speechless. We've killed the island master and offended the dragons. Anyone else would stay away from us. But not only did they not stay away, they were even so friendly. Do you think that's reasonable? The most important point. Ever since we entered the Dragon God Palace, we've either been cultivating in the castle or outside. We've never really appeared in front of anyone. But how did they know that it was our first time here? Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice with a smile. That's right. The black wolf slapped its head and mumbled, then what's their purpose? I don't know. But this matter must have something to do with the island master. Qin Feiyang transmitted his voice. What do you mean? The black wolf was stunned. Because in the entire first island, only the island master knows that it's our first time in the treasury. I was wondering why he would be so kind as to remind me about the divine art treasury. Now I finally understand that he's going to make a big fuss here. Qin Feiyang smiled faintly. Chapter 2476. The big black wolf secretly said, then should we make the first move to gain the upper hand? No need. Let's see what tricks they can play. Qin Feiyang said, then stopped and muttered, you haven't appeared yet? Who hasn't appeared? Hearing Qin Feiyang's murmur, the big black wolf couldn't help but look at Qin Feiyang in surprise. A nobleman. Qin Feiyang smiled. After walking around the second floor, he took the big black wolf to the third floor. The third floor was a little smaller, but there were at least tens of thousands of jade boxes. With so many jade boxes, it was harder than ascending to the heavens to choose the supreme level divine art. Qin Feiyang stopped on the stairs, lowered his head and pondered. Where would it be placed? Where was the most likely place? Logically speaking, it was usually in an inconspicuous corner or a relatively hidden place. The possibility was the highest. There was no way to find it. Because there was only one chance. Can't be anxious. Think about it from another perspective. If it was him, where would he put such an important treasure like the supreme level divine art? If it was him who put it, the safest place was the most dangerous place. And the most dangerous place might be the safest place. Thinking of this, Qin Feiyang took the big black wolf and quickly returned to the first floor. Standing in front of the door, he glanced at the two iron frames beside the door. These two iron frames were on both sides of the door, and could be seen as soon as he came in. In a sense, this was undoubtedly the most dangerous place. However, he didn't know who put the divine art there. What if the other party had a different idea from him? Furthermore, even if it was as he expected, the supreme level divine art was on these two iron frames, it was difficult to judge. Because on each iron frame, there were hundreds of jade boxes. There's only one chance. Qin Feiyang muttered. This was a difficult choice. What are you thinking about? The big black wolf looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously. Why is he standing there? The three old men also noticed Qin Feiyang's abnormality and looked at Qin Feiyang in confusion. Don't think about it. Because no matter how you think about it, it's impossible to find what you want so quickly. After all, there are too many boxes here. Suddenly, a familiar voice sounded in Qin Feiyang's mind. The Shadowless. Qin Feiyang's spirit was shaken. He asked telepathically, then how do you think I should find him? The Shadowless said, no matter how you look, it's useless unless you open them one by one. How is this possible? Qin Feiyang smiled bitterly. How many contribution points would it take to open them one by one? The shadowless man was silent for a while, then suddenly said, actually, you already have a lot of divine arts. Why do you still want more? Qin Feiyang said, leaving it here will only benefit the dragons. Since that's the case, why don't I take it and benefit myself? You brat. The shadowless laughed and scolded. Qin Feiyang chuckled. However, it's also quite interesting. Alright, I'll help you. Walk along here, the fourth row of iron shelves, the third floor, counting from the left, the second jade box, there's what you want. There's another one on the second floor. Go upstairs and turn left, the fifth iron shelf, the second floor, counting from the right, the seventh jade box. The divine arts in that jade box are very suitable for a creature like a wolf to cultivate. The shadowless man said. Thank you. Qin Feiyang was extremely grateful, and immediately told the big black wolf in secret. What's going on? The big black wolf was shocked. Don't ask yet, go quickly. Remember, don't take the wrong one. Qin Feiyang secretly said. All right. The big black wolf nodded and immediately ran to the second floor. Qin Feiyang also immediately took action. He walked to the fourth row of iron shelves and looked at the third floor. His gaze quickly locked onto the second jade box on the left. What is he doing? He was still hesitating before, why did he suddenly become so decisive? The old man was surprised. The middle-aged man said, these are not the main points, act according to the original plan. I'll go right away. The thin young man said in a low voice. Then, he suddenly turned into a stream of light, and rushed towards Qin Feiyang. At the same time, Qin Feiyang raised his arm and grabbed the second jade box. At that moment, an invisible force enveloped them. Seeing that they were about to disappear, the thin young man flew over and also grabbed the jade box. The two of them disappeared at the same time. Let's go. The old man in his 70s and the middle-aged man also casually took a jade box and quickly disappeared. At the same time, the big black wolf also found the jade box mentioned by the shadowless man and disappeared from the second floor. Outside, 4 people and 1 wolf appeared outside the door almost at the same time. What are you doing? Qin Feiyang glared at the thin young man. This was the jade box designated by the shadowless man. There must be a supreme-level divine art inside. This person actually wanted to snatch it? I should be the one asking you what you want to do. The thin young man also stared at Qin Feiyang angrily. What's going on? The big black wolf looked at the two of them suspiciously. Why did the two of them start fighting when they were just going up the stairs? Qin Feiyang's face was gloomy, and he said, I don't want to talk nonsense with you, let go immediately. You're the one who should let go. The thin young man shouted. Qin Feiyang's entire body suddenly emitted a monstrous killing intent. Although he didn't know what this person wanted to do, if he dared to touch this jade box, then he must die. What are you doing? At this time, the black-clothed man walked out of the duty hall, looked at the murderous Qin Feiyang, and shouted, Do you want to kill people in the Dragon God Palace again? Let me tell you, there is Lord Chief Palace Master personally overseeing the Dragon God Palace. Exactly. Lord Chief Palace Master is personally overseeing the Dragon God Palace. How can you do as you please? The thin young man snorted. Qin Feiyang looked at the thin young man, then looked at the black-clothed man, and said, I just want to ask you one thing, is it interesting? What do you mean? As if I'm his accomplice. The black-clothed man's face suddenly showed a trace of displeasure. He walked in front of the two of them, looked at the jade box, and frowned. What's going on? Speak clearly. Island Master, this Li Bu, is such a bastard, he actually stole the jade box I picked. The thin young man immediately said. The black-clothed man raised his eyebrows, looked at Qin Feiyang and said, "Why did you steal the jade box he picked?" Qin Feiyang suppressed the killing intent in his heart and said, "I picked this jade box." He suddenly ran over to snatch it. The black-clothed man was stunned, then looked at the thin young man and said, "So, you're a thief, crying thief." "I'm innocent, Lord, they can all testify." The thin young man pointed at the 70-year-old man and the middle-aged man behind him. "We can testify that it was indeed Li Bu, who stole it." The 70-year-old man and the middle-aged man nodded. The big black wolf ran to Qin Feiyang and said angrily, "You're his accomplices, of course you'll help him to testify." "Testify? You can eat whatever you want, but you can't say whatever you want." Although we entered the divine technique treasury together, we're not familiar with him at all, let alone his accomplices. We're just seeing injustice on the road. The 70-year-old man and the middle-aged man said righteously. "Damn you. You're full of lies. Believe it or not, I'll kill you all." The big black wolf roared. Previously in the divine technique treasury, they were like brothers, but in the blink of an eye, they were no longer familiar with each other. Each of them was a pile of old bones, but they were still so shameless. "You said you picked it." "He said he picked it." "How do you want me to judge?" The black-clothed man looked at them with a troubled expression. The thin young man snorted, "Since Island Master can't judge, then let us solve it in our own way." Hearing this, Qin Feiyang narrowed his eyes slightly. "What way?" The black-clothed man looked at the thin young man suspiciously. The thin young man said, "One-on-one, the jade box will belong to whoever wins." "One-on-one?" Qin Feiyang was stunned. Where did this person get the courage to challenge him to a one-on-one? The black-clothed man was also stunned. He frowned and said, "Just for a jade box, is it necessary? This is no longer about the jade box, it's about dignity. Li Bu, do you dare to accept my challenge?" The thin young man looked at Qin Feiyang provocatively. The black-clothed man said, "Li Bu, think carefully. This is just a small matter, there's no need to make it seem like we're mortal enemies." Before the black-clothed man finished, Qin Feiyang looked at the thin young man and said, "I accept." The thin young man said, "Regardless of life or death." "Whatever." Qin Feiyang said lightly. "Regardless of life or death." It seemed like he came prepared. This should be the black-clothed man's trick. He made use of the thin young man and the other two to have a conflict with him, and then the thin young man challenged him. The black-clothed man tried to persuade him hypocritically. In fact, he was echoing the three of them. "Since you guys agree, fine. But let's make it clear first. Since it's a duel between two people, no one else can interfere. Li Bu, do you agree?" The black-clothed man looked at Qin Feiyang and said. Obviously, the person he was referring to was Huolian. If he wanted to get rid of Qin Feiyang, he had to think of a way to stop Fire Lotus from interfering. Because in the black-clothed man's opinion, as long as Fire Lotus did not interfere, killing Qin Feiyang would be a piece of cake. When Qin Feiyang heard the black-clothed man's words, he could not help but laugh. After all this time, they were just trying to set a trap for him? Did they think that the three of them could kill him without Fire Lotus? Ignorance was scary. He had thought that this person would come up with a great conspiracy, but it turned out that it was just a child's play, a joke. He was tired of this kind of small trick. Li Bu? The black-clothed man looked at Qin Feiyang suspiciously and said, "If you have any objections, just say it." "Whatever." Qin Feiyang said indifferently. "Okay. I'll take care of your jade box first. I'll give it to the winner later." The black-clothed man said. "No need to go through so much trouble." Qin Feiyang said indifferently, and then slapped at the thin young man. The speed of the attack was beyond the thin young man's ability to react. "Ah!" The thin young man immediately screamed as his entire body flew out. His chest that was hit caved in on the spot. "What?" The black-clothed man and the old man in his 70s stared at this scene with their mouths agape. instantly injuring the thin young man? Wasn't he just a low-tier war god? How could his attack be so fast that you're tuning into the Biyao's Wuxia Chronicles YouTube channel? Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.